Chapter 2239. Acting as a Skill 1. The news released by the Temple of Paragon gave the location of the Fiend Celestial's tomb, but it did not specify where the entrance was. To locate the entrance as soon as possible, the various factions split up to comb through the entire mountain. Several figures quietly snuck over as the factions were searching for the entrance. "Are you sure you saw them head this way?" Yun Chun furrowed his brows slightly, his handsome face covered with bruises of varying sizes. "I'm sure." Nangong Lai had an 8 trigrams plate in his hand with a strand of hair on it. Lei Yen, Jing Zhe and Qin Feng were also present. The Rising Dragon Island had let them go because of Mu Ziying's threat. But they could not just stand by and let her get kidnapped. "Are we really not going to tell boss about this first?" Lei Yen was hesitant. "Little senior sister was captured. Don't you know what kind of people the Rising Dragon Island are? If we delay, little senior sister might not be able to make it back alive," Nangong Lai said. They were all very anxious after Mu Ziying was captured. After a discussion, they decided to go looking for her. After all, the Rising Dragon Island was notorious, and about their boss powers. To be honest, every single one of them was even more powerful than boss. Those teenagers did not dare to get too close. They followed the faction from a safe distance. There were many people from the various factions, and the mountain was not that big. Before long, someone spread the news that they had found the entrance to the Fiend Celestial's tomb. All the factions swarmed toward the location. It was a massive stone door hidden in the middle of the mountain. The door was covered in moss and other plants. It would have been easy to overlook it if one was not careful. "I will open the door." The eyes of the leader of the beast race flashed. Charging forward, he used his huge body to ram against the door. But the door did not even budge. As hard as the beast race leader tried, he was unable to move it at all. Seeing this, the other factions all stepped forward to try and open the door. But no matter how many people tried and how much effort they put in, the door remained unmoving. "It's not that easy to open the door to the Fiend Celestial's tomb." The child from Black Moon Palace spoke up. Everyone immediately stopped. A small figure slowly walked out of the carriage on the massive beast. It was a child who looked about 5 to 6 years old. His chubby face looked pink and tender, but his eyes were full of maliciousness. "It's him. The Black Moon Palace has really gone all out this time. They even sent the demon child." Previously, the crowd had their doubts about the identity of the person inside the carriage. But now, everyone's faces grew solemn at the sight of the child. The Black Moon Palace had a very miraculous skill. One had to start practicing it when one was still a very young child. The skill would stabilize after the child grew a little older, and he would never age from then on, but maintain in a childlike form. Those who looked very young inside the Black Moon Palace were actually very powerful. This demon child in front of them was one of the 4 biggest powers of the Black Moon Palace. It was rumored that this demon child had already reached the Divine Lord's 7th heaven level. After the Divine Lord stage, the difference between each heaven level was very wide. As wide as the difference between 2 major stages. The various factions had sent their men here because of the Temple of Paragon's edict. Plus they were on the same mainland as the Temple of Paragon, so they had all exercised restraint. Chapter 2240. Acting as a Skill 2. As such, they did not send forth their top practitioners, so most of them here were Divine Lord 6th heaven level and below. It could be said that this demon child was the most powerful amongst them. Everyone knew that this meant the Black Moon Palace was exceptionally determined to get the treasure inside the Fiend Celestial's tomb. It was not hard to ascertain the Black Moon Palace's intentions. They quietly cursed in their hearts. But for now, it wouldn't be any major issue if this demon child could open the Fiend Celestial's tomb door. The demon child narrowed his eyes as he observed the stone door, which had been sealed for a long time. A dark red mist swirled around him. Suddenly, an intense menacing aura surged out of his body. Pa! He struck his palm straight against the Fiend Celestial's tomb door. A beam of red light flashed on the door the moment the palm landed. Powerful energy was reflected from the surface of the door. The demon child's eyes shifted before immediately taking one step back, diverting the reflected energy away. Boom! A thunderous boom rang out. The energy diverted away by the demon child had completely flattened everything in that direction. This door is strange. The demon child narrowed his eyes. We cannot use brute force on this door. Otherwise it will just reflect the energy back at you. The demon child rubbed his palm, which had gone numb. A streak of blood had appeared at the corner of his lips. To think that even the demon child was unable to open the Fiend Celestial's tomb door. This was something completely unexpected by the crowd at present. After all, the Fiend Celestial's tomb was there in front of their eyes. But they didn't even have any idea how to enter. For a moment there, everyone sank into a deep silence. If we cannot open this door, let us just destroy this entire mountain. The Fiend Celestial's tomb will be exposed then, an elder suggested. You can try if you dare. The demon child smirked as he turned to return to his carriage. The elder's face stiffened, but he didn't do anything. Even a simple door possessed the power to reflect energy. If they tried to destroy this mountain, who knew what kind of consequences there would be? The Fiend Celestial might be dead, but the lingering remnants of his divine consciousness were not something they could fend against. Don't tell me only an Emperor-level practitioner can open it? Someone guessed. Emperor-level practitioner. Even an Emperor-level practitioner would probably be unable to open this door, the demon child stated in a cold voice. Everyone was stunned. The Temple of Paragon knew of the Fiend Celestial's tomb location a long time ago, and there is something they need inside. Can you guess why they didn't come forth to take it themselves? Why did they only just release news of this to let us fight over it? The demon child narrowed its eyes. It was probably because even the Temple of Paragon didn't know how to open this door. But if even the Temple of Paragon is unable to open this door, what can the rest of us do? The people here were well aware of the wide disparity between them and the Temple of Paragon. If even the Temple of Paragon could not enter the Fiend Celestial's tomb, how could the rest of them hope to do so? Regardless, we have to try. Since you guys don't want to, then let us destroy this mountain. The people from Falling Water Pavilion leaped into the air. Fools! The demon child smirked as he leaned back lazily in his carriage. Everyone quietened down to see how those Falling Water Pavilion people would try to flatten this mountain. Just as they were prepared to attack, an ethereal voice rang out. This is the first time I have seen people so eager to die. Chapter 2241. Acting as a Skill 3. Everyone was shocked by the sudden voice. They instinctively turned toward the source, only to see a massive black figure had appeared somewhere at the mountain peak. The figure was pitch black. The surrounding plants were not at all impacted as it passed. A strange aura spread across the entire mountain. Seeing the ominous figure, the hairs on Peng Ji stood on in the moment he felt that aura. No one else at present knew that aura better than him. This was the aura which he and his Spy Cloud team had encountered not long ago. And he was the only one left alive. Night Soul Beast. It's that Night Soul Beast. Peng Ji cried out in terror. Everyone's expressions immediately shifted. Night Soul Beast. Aren't the Night Soul Beasts in hibernation? Why did one appear here? But after that black mass gradually descended the mountain and landed before everyone's eyes, they all instinctively held their breaths. Wasn't this black mass so colossal that it looked like it could swallow this entire mountain, the legendary fearsome Night Soul Beast? At that moment, everyone's faces were extremely grim. This Night Soul Beast was bigger than all the ones that they had heard of in the legends. Everyone went on high alert. They had all heard stories of how vicious the Night Soul Beast was. They had only dared to invade the Evil Soul Forest this time, because the Night Soul Beasts were supposed to be in hibernation. But someone is riding on the back of the Night Soul Beast. A person suddenly spied a figure on the back of the Night Soul Beast. A figure dressed in a black robe could be clearly seen standing on the back of the Night Soul Beast. How is that possible? Everyone was stunned. The Night Soul Beast were guardians of the Evil Soul Forest. They were born from the remnants of the divine consciousness of the Fiend Celestial, as well as the resentment from millions of perished souls. Its goal was to kill every single living creature who stepped into the Evil Soul Forest. But now, a human-looking fellow was standing on top of the Night Soul Beast's back. What was going on? Everyone was bewildered. More than remnants of fear arose in the hearts of the crowd, and that formless fear morphed into slivers of energy, entering the night soul beast's body. What a marvelous taste! The night soul beast savored this familiar taste of fear. Nourished by it, its power continued to grow. Yi Qingtang stood on the back of the night soul beast, garbed in a black robe with her face covered by a mask. She knew very well that the night soul beast beneath her feet was continuously absorbing the fear and unease radiating from the various factions. The demon child was taken aback by the sight of the night soul beast and Yi Qingtang, who didn't know that the night soul beast was a ferocious being that submitted to no one. But controlled by this black-robed person, it didn't immediately charge forward to attack them. That massive beast was now obediently beneath the feet of that black-robed person, as if it was following her instructions. In this world, there was someone who was able to tame and control a night soul beast? Furthermore, such a massive one. As the night soul beast was too powerful, the demon child was unable to sense just how high the black-robed person's level was. Nevertheless, no one in this world could control a night soul beast. Just who was this black-robed person? The demon child and the leaders of other factions exchanged discreet looks. It was clear that the sudden appearance of this black-robed person was now the key focus of everyone's attention. Chapter 2242. Fiend Celestial's Will 1. Demon Child, in your opinion, how powerful is this night soul beast? An elder from the Falling Water Pavilion asked. The demon child narrowed his eyes. Above me, everyone froze at these words. This night soul beast was even more powerful than the demon child? But since this night soul beast did not go into hibernation, its power would be greatly reduced. If we attack in unison, it should not be too difficult to defeat it. But the demon child's eyes hardened as they landed on Yi Qingtang. The person standing on top of that night soul beast is the key. One night soul beast. Together they had the advantage of numbers and could defeat it. But the demon child was worried about this black-robed person who could command a night soul beast. A person who could control a night soul beast was definitely no random ordinary passerby. Her appearance was no accident. Don't tell me she is the protector of this evil soul forest? An elder from the Falling Water Pavilion asked. The Fiend Celestial had died, but the remnants of his divine consciousness remained. Those followers of the Fiend Celestial might be still alive, but hidden inside the evil soul forest. It was just that no one had ever gone near the Fiend Celestial's tomb, and so those protectors never appeared. I don't know. The demon child shook his head. Are you able to sense her level? The demon child shook his head again. For a moment, the various factions had no idea what to do. May I know who you are? The elder from Falling Water Pavilion stepped forward and asked Yi Qingtang. My name has already been long forgotten by mortals. Of what use is there in telling you? Yi Qingtang affected a profound manner. You all wish to enter the Fiend Celestial's tomb. It's not impossible. I have waited here for tens of thousands of years, waiting for someone who can inherit the will of the Fiend Celestial. What? Everyone was dumbstruck by Yi Qingtang's words. Inherit the will of the Fiend Celestial? What did she mean by that? Yi Qingtang quietly took a deep breath as she observed their faces. Luckily, during this period in her previous life, people in the second domain did not know much about the evil soul forest. If the Temple of Paragon hadn't told them about the location of the Fiend Celestial's tomb, it would take another 200 to 300 years before they would uncover the truth behind the evil soul forest. And this ignorance was perfect for Yi Qingtang's duplicity. You came here but you did not know. Yi Qingtang pretended to be dubious. The crowd became even more confused by Yi Qingtang's question. Mighty One, please enlighten us. The crowd was very respectful toward this black-robed figure. They could not tell this person's power level, but knew that she was not your usual practitioner if she was able to control a night soul beast. Before they could find out more about Yi Qingtang, it was better to be respectful. Who knew where this person came from? Since she was able to control the night soul beast, she might even be able to summon those who were still in hibernation. By then, they would all die in this evil soul forest. Never mind. It is still fate that you have all come here. Yi Qingtang sighed before continuing in a grave voice. The fiend celestial may have perished, but its divine consciousness has remained in this tomb. By order of the fiend celestial, I have waited all this time for a person who is fated to find the fiend celestial's tomb. All that is needed is for him to enter the fiend celestial's tomb and pass the fiend celestial's test. Once that is achieved, he can then obtain the treasures that were left behind, as well as the will of the fiend celestial. All sorts of expressions crossed the faces of the crowd. Some were shocked, some were puzzled, some were full of suspicion. Inherit the fiend celestial's will? No one had ever heard of such a thing. Chapter 2243. Fiend celestial's will too. The leaders of the factions exchanged dubious looks. They did not completely believe in the identity of this black-robed person. No one had ever heard of this black-robed person in the Evil Soul Forest. But she had suddenly appeared today. The major factions were no fools, and naturally would not believe everything she said just like that. But no one revealed any of their doubts. Elder Feng, do you think that person is serious? In response, Elder Feng from Falling Water Pavilion said, for the moment, we cannot confirm if she is serious. But since she said that she is here waiting for the fated person, let us see how things develop first. For now, it was true that they were unable to open the door to the fiend celestial's tomb. If this black-robed person was serious, then she would know how to open it. As for the rest of her claims, there was no way they would just believe everything she said. The leaders of the various factions all had this line of thinking, but as for the matter concerning the inheritance of the fiend celestial's will, everyone had their own guesses and theories. But they would lay low for now and see if this black-robed person had any tricks up her sleeve. I wonder how it is possible to determine who the fated person is. The demon child's voice rang out from the carriage. His tone was calm with hints of probing. This person will be personally chosen by the fiend celestial's will. Yi Qingtang replied steadily. How will he be chosen? The crowd was very curious. Yi Qingtang was in no hurry. She knew that these people were still dubious about her words, but as long as they wanted to enter the fiend celestial's tomb, she was confident in hoodwinking them. The fiend celestials will mainly exist in the tomb. You just need to enter it. The suitable person will naturally be chosen. I am only the guide. Yi Qingtang spoke in a mild tone. Everyone couldn't help being stunned by Yi Qingtang's words. Since you are the guide, I wonder if you can guide us into the tomb? The demon child asked. The current obstacle was that they were unable to open that stone door. This question was a test of this black-robed person's identity. Of course, Yi Qingtang didn't hesitate. She urged the night soul beast toward the stone door. The crowd looked at Yi Qingtang with complicated expressions. With narrowed eyes, the demon child carefully analyzed Yi Qingtang's every move. The faction leaders quietly all went on high alert. This black-robed person's appearance was too bizarre. They had never heard of her claims, and so they did not dare to believe her declaration. Yi Qingtang could clearly feel countless pairs of eyes fixed upon her back. Leaping off the night soul beast's back, she stood in front of the stone door. The fiend celestial's tomb entrance was very strange. In her previous life, people took 50 years after the discovery of the tomb to finally open the door, which had been sealed for eons. In her previous life, this stone door had stumped the second domain factions for a full 50 years. Yi Qingtang looked at the stone door before her, recalling her memories from her previous life. Quietly, she took a deep breath and shot a look at the night soul beast. The night soul beast felt very frustrated, but had no choice but to comply. It was the only night soul beast who was awake. On its own, it could not defeat the wild ambitions of the major factions. As such, it had no choice but to cooperate with Yi Qingtang. Using its body to cover what it was doing, the night soul beast secretly reached out one feeler. Chapter 2244. Fiend Celestial's Will 3. That feeler quietly wrapped around Yi Qingtang's finger. Together, they drew a string of bizarre runes on the stone door. The runes left no mark on the door at all. The crowd wanted to peep at the method to open the door, but their attempts were blocked by the mammoth body of the night soul beast. Lei Yen and the rest were hidden in a dark corner, and had observed the entire proceedings. That black-robed person? Don't tell me she's the protector of the evil soul forest? Inheritance of the fiend celestial's will. Is there such a thing? Yunchen frowned slightly. That fellow is able to control the night soul beast, unbelievable. But aren't we supposed to find a way to rescue little senior sister now? Nangong Lai prompted. It's not the right time to make our move now. Let's wait and see first, Yunchen replied. The teenagers nodded. Yunchen looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng, do you think that black-robed person is really able to open the stone door? Qin Feng kept quiet for a moment, before nodding slightly. If she cannot do it, it would have been suicide for her to appear. Never expected there to be so much action inside the evil soul forest. I wonder where boss is. If he can't find us, he'll probably be very anxious. Jing Zhe gave a small smile. Their failure to protect Mu Ziying was a thorn in their hearts. How could they bear to face Yi Qing? They had to find a chance to rescue Mu Ziying first. Just as the teenagers were discussing in a low voice, a dark red light suddenly lit up behind the night soul beast. The red light shot into the sky, a profound aura suddenly spreading across the entire mountain. The expressions of the various factions changed. The massive night soul beast slowly turned around, with the black-robed Yi Qingtang once again standing on its back. In the next instance, the stone door once again appeared in the crowd's line of sight. And everyone was quietly stunned by that sight. The sealed stone door had been opened. The crowd had been full of suspicion about the black-robed person, but now they were utterly dumbstruck. To think she managed to open the door to the fiend celestial's tomb. All sorts of emotions and thoughts surged through the various factions. Faced with this situation, their doubts about this black-robed person had lessened considerably. They all knew how big of an obstacle that stone door was. Even the demon child was unable to do anything about that stone door. And since the Temple of Paragon didn't prompt them about how to open the door when it released its news, everyone had been completely despondent. Quite a number of people even wanted to just destroy the entire mountain. But in the blink of an eye, that black-robed person easily opened that stone door. Although they could not be sure if everything the black-robed person said was true, everyone was certain about one point. This black-robed person was closely interlinked with the evil soul forest and the fiend celestial. She might really be the protector of this evil soul forest. Otherwise, how did she manage to control the night soul beast? And not only that, she opened the stone door so easily. Everyone was looking at Yi Qingtang with more caution now. Yi Qingtang observed the reactions of everyone, but she appeared impassive. In reality, after the second domain faction spent all that time on the fiend celestial's tomb in her previous life, after it was opened, details of this tomb had spread across the world and became common knowledge. Chapter 2245, Tomb 1. By the time Yi Qingtang arrived at the second domain in her previous lifetime, the fiend celestial tomb had already been open for decades. It wasn't a secretive affair at all. Almost everyone in the mainland knew about it and would talk about it. Yi Qingtang had been hiding around many places, so she naturally heard the discussions about the tomb. The fiend celestial tomb could never be opened using external forces. Even if an emperor-level person tried to forcibly open it, there would be a counter-effect. If anyone tried to forcibly open the tomb, just like the muscular man from the Falling Water Pavilion, there would only be one outcome, and that was death. The only way to open the fiend celestial tomb was for the night soul beast to personally open it. The night soul beast was the protector of the evil soul forest, and also the fiend celestial tomb. However, only Yi Qingtang knew about it. The night soul beast was puzzled. How did these humans even figure out how to open the tomb? The fiend celestial tomb is open. Several people wanted to charge into the tomb when it opened up. Yi Qingtang didn't say anything. A few groups took their man and charged into the tomb in the blink of an eye, and Yi Qingtang didn't stop them. They desperately wanted to lay their hands on the fiend celestial treasures. Moreover, they didn't trust Yi Qingtang, and so they moved quickly. There were only a few forces who didn't act on it. The Black Moon Palace, Falling Water Pavilion, Rising Dragon Island and Spy Cloud's forces didn't do anything. They merely exchanged glances and remained still. It seemed that they were waiting for something. Just a moment later, piercing shrieks echoed in the dark tomb. The strong smell of blood started permeating through everyone's nostrils. When the forces standing outside the tomb heard the sounds, they remained expressionless. It was as if they had already predicted the outcome. The next moment, bloody figures escaped out of the tomb. They seemed to have used their last bit of energy to climb out of the tomb, rather than escape. Their lower bodies were gruesome. The bones in their legs were gone, leaving only strips of flesh that continued bleeding. Jerk! How dare you do this to us? The man used his last bit of energy to climb out of the tomb. His eyes were bleeding, a part of his chin missing, and with a huge slit across his stomach as his organs spilled out. Yi Qingtang looked at the resentful man calmly. The man could hardly breathe, and when he finally took his last breath, the shrieks in the tomb started becoming softer, until it became silent once again. Everyone knew that it wasn't because they had escaped to a safe space. It was most likely because they already died. The first batch of forces to enter the tomb wasn't too large. There were only 1,800 of them combined. These 1,800 people were defeated in an instant. The tomb was dangerous. Although the doors were wide open, not everyone could guarantee they would come out alive once they entered. Chapter 2246. Tomb 2. Lei Yan and the others who were in hiding felt chills run down their spines at the sight of those wretched dead bodies around the tomb entrance. No one knew what had happened in the tomb just now. Elder Feng and the other faction leaders saw that all was calm in the interior of the tomb, and the expressions on their faces were grim. They had already guessed that it would not be so easy to enter the Fiend Celestial's tomb, and so hadn't rushed to enter and perish without a second glance. Ambition was a good thing, but one also had to have brains. Only then could you preserve your own life. And earlier, they already noticed that Yi Qingtang did not make any move to enter even though the stone door had been opened. If Yi Qingtang's words were true, and she was really the guide to the person who would inherit the Fiend Celestial's will, she would naturally have led the Chosen One in. But she didn't make any move, and those fools just rushed in, and ended up losing their lives. I wonder what are the rules of this tomb? Mighty One, please enlighten us, Elder Feng asked politely. As she had opened the stone door, he believed in her words to a certain extent. Of course, Yi Qingtang spoke mildly. She had been waiting for them to take the initiative to ask. As the Fiend Celestial's tomb guide, Yi Qingtang was in no hurry to disclose everything to everyone. So she had waited. Those who are not fated will meet certain death if they force their way in. But since one of you is the fated one, I will lead you all inside. However, Yi Qingtang's tone suddenly turned cold. You must heed my instructions inside the tomb. Otherwise, if you trigger any trap, I will not help you. Yi Qingtang's words were chilly and sounded like a warning, but everyone relaxed a little at her words. After all, if Yi Qingtang had immediately told them that everything would be fine, they would never trust her. Instead, they would suspect that Yi Qingtang had ulterior motives. But of course, Elder Feng and the rest nodded. Without another word, Yi Qingtang leaped off the back of the Night Soul Beast and stood in front of the entrance. As she lifted her hand, right in front of their eyes, the massive Night Soul Beast shrank until it was about the size of a tiger. But the eyes of that Night Soul Beast remained sharp and harsh as they swept across the crowd. Follow me. Yi Qingtang infused spirit energy into her voice, so that everyone could hear her clearly. With that, the factions followed behind her. The demon child also alighted from his carriage. Brushing by Elder Feng and the rest, he communicated through spirit energy. After entering the tomb, we must monitor this person's movements closely. The moment something looks off, we must immediately coordinate to take her down. Elder Feng and the rest quietly communicated their assent. They needed to make use of Yi Qingtang's understanding of this tomb to lead them inside, but they also had to be on their guard against her. Only fools would completely believe Yi Qingtang's earlier word without thinking more about it. This person was taking the initiative to lead them inside the tomb. But why? For the moment no one knew. Lei Yan and his group saw that most of the factions had already entered the tomb, and they immediately followed behind. It was pitch black inside. A rotting smell permeated the air, which had been trapped inside this closed-off space for tens of thousands of years. That rotting stench mixed with the smell of fresh blood entered the bodies of the people as they breathed. Chapter 2247, Tomb 3. After being surrounded in the darkness for a fair amount of time, it no longer affected the sight of martial art practitioners. Darkness was no obstacle to them, as they could still see in the dark. This was the thinking of the crowd as they stepped into the Fiend Celestial's tomb. But after they truly stepped in, they realized that they could not see through the darkness. The weakest man in that group was still at least a Divine Lord First Heaven level, while the most powerful was already at the 8th Heaven level. To them, darkness was nothing to be worried about. But now, they could not even see their own hands stretched out in front of them. A cold breeze blew by their ears. It was a chilly draft which originated from the deeper recesses of the tomb. It brought with it a rotting stench, which intermingled with the smell of fresh blood. Lights! Yi Qingtang's voice rang out from the front. The crowd finally snapped out of their trance, and each brought out their various illumination instruments. Luckily I was well prepared and specially brought an illuminating lamp. Nangong Lai murmured softly as he reached into his space ring. You have an illuminating lamp? Good job. Lei Yin patted Nangong Lai on the shoulder. Illuminating lamps were one of the more superior illumination instruments. The Leitang family had several, and used them in their underground practice arena. The palm-sized lamp could light up a radius spanning several miles. Once lit, it could transform the surrounding darkness into an area as bright as day. Nangong Lai chuckled as he took out the illuminating lamp. But after he lit it, the lamp exuded a weak brightness that was only enough to light up a 1-meter radius around him. And the glow was murky, even more dismal than the weak flickering of a candle's flame. Nangong Lai. Lei Yin shot Nangong Lai a strange look. Is this a fake? Wasn't this an illuminating lamp? Nangong Lai was also puzzled. This was a genuine article, but why was the light so weak? Qin Feng and the group thought that they would be able to see the path clearly by that single illuminating lamp. But now, they all started to take out their own illumination devices. But when they lit their own instruments, the results were even dimmer than that illuminating lamp. They could only light up the upper half of their bodies. The same situation happened to everyone in the tomb. All sorts of illumination devices were taken out, but could only produce a weak glow, which looked like it was being swallowed by the darkness in the pitch-black tomb. This tomb is rather strange. I already found it strange when it was already so dark the moment we stepped inside. Light from the outside is unable to penetrate into this tomb at all. One of the men turned to look at the entrance. The doorway leading to the outside Evil Soul Forest was still bright, but it was pitch black on the inside. That stone door was like a portal between two entirely separate worlds. Everyone please stop and keep quiet. Yi Qingtang's voice rang out again. A ball of light was floating at the front, where she was standing. That ball of light was more dazzling than any of the illuminating devices held by the others. What's that? The crowd stared curiously at the ball of light floating above Yi Qingtang's head. Instead of responding, Yi Qingtang only continued forward. She had already known that she would be coming to the Evil Soul Forest, and so made the necessary preparations. In her previous life, quite a bit of information regarding the Fiend Celestial's tomb had been circulated around. She didn't plan to enter the tomb, but was worried that other places in the Evil Soul Forest might have the same situation. So she had specially gone to buy a spirit pearl. Chapter 2248, Matrix Path 1. Within the Fiend Celestial's tomb, the darkness could swallow all light. Even the various illumination devices could not dispel the darkness, and could only maintain a weak glow. The spirit pearl was an exceptional illumination instrument, and was something that could make use of spirit energy. And only by infusing it with spirit energy could this device light up, and not be completely engulfed by the darkness. This was derived from the experiences of the people in her previous life. It must be said that Yi Qingtang had a very good memory. She could recall everything that she had heard of in her previous life. When the crowd saw the light on top of Yi Qingtang's head, the unease in their hearts decreasing quite a bit. It was rather strange. Those who had first barged into the tomb had all died inside. But after traveling for several meters, they had yet to see even a single corpse. Lit by the weak glow from the lights, they could not see the path beneath their feet. They could only feel that the ground felt a bit sticky. It was the sticky feeling of fresh blood that had not yet fully dried. All the while the demon child remained behind Yi Qingtang, and so he could see everything around him. The entranceway to the tomb was far wider than they imagined. They could not see the ends of either side. The demon child's eyes eventually landed on Yi Qingtang. There was an intense guardedness and probing in those eyes. Mighty One, I wonder what conditions are there for one to inherit the will of the Fiend Celestial. The demon child suddenly stepped forward, an innocent smile on his face. That pure, guileless smile bloomed on his tender face, no different from a normal child. It was a smile that would make you let down your guard. Yi Qingtang quietly sized up the demon child. In her heart, she did not dare to treat him as a normal child at all. After all, who didn't know that the children from Black Moon Palace were all bloodthirsty killers? But they were very adept at making use of their appearance when necessary to trick others. Yi Qingtang knew that demon child was just trying to probe her. The more one said, the more mistakes one might make. Likewise, the reverse was also true. So she just ignored the demon child and continued forward with the night soul beast. The demon child narrowed his eyes and stopped smiling. After some time, Yi Qingtang suddenly halted. Puzzled, the group looked toward the area in front of Yi Qingtang, only to see multiple stone statues erected on the path. Those statues had very strange shapes. Most were heinous-looking demons holding tridents or long blades. They had malicious expressions, with long tongues sticking out of their jaws. There were numerous statues densely packed on both sides of the path. Damn, what are those? The hairs on Lei Yan stood on end at the sight of those evil demon statues. Are those humans? Jing Zhe muttered in a low voice after realizing something. The crowd followed Jing Zhe's line of sight. Everyone broke out in cold sweat. Bloodied corpses were hung up on the second row of evil demon statues. Those bodies looked rather familiar. Weren't they the first batch of people who had rushed in? They had just been alive not long ago, but were now trapped in all sorts of eerie, twisted positions on the evil demon statues. In fact, their bodies looked like they had been smashed by something. Their hands and legs twisted in obscene angles. Not only that, the weapons in the hands of those evil demons had penetrated their hearts, abdomens and other areas. Chapter 2249 Massacre. Back then, Jian Wushuang's understanding of the sword doctrine had been mediocre and straightforward. The sword skills he had cast were extremely simple. After he cultivated within the sword doctrine trial tower for 1,000 years, his understanding of sword skills was completely different. There was more to sword skills than the techniques. The techniques were fixed and couldn't be changed. However, a human could be flexible. Those who knew how to use a sword could make a simple slash or jab, even more precise and deadly compared to those ordinary experts who cast incredible sword skills. Those who did not know how to use a sword would have numerous weaknesses, even if they had incredible sword skills. They might not even be able to beat someone who used simple sword skills. Jian Wushuang, who had cultivated within the sword doctrine trail tower, had been that way initially, but now he was the opposite. In the space, Jian Wushuang stopped holding back as he used all the sword skills he had. His casual slash, flick, cut, thrust. Each move was used perfectly and smoothly. This was proof he had finally made the cut to be considered an expert in the sword doctrine. This was the difference between initial success in sword doctrine compared to an amateur. With the help of his sword skills, Jian Wushuang could fend off the attacks from more than 20 experts in the divine demon realm easily. He could even counterattack frequently, while fending off the attacks targeted at him. He thrust out his sword. Before the sword skill reached the target, a terrifying soul attack would reach it first. Jian Wushuang's soul attack had become even more powerful during the 24,000 years he was in slumber, as his soul power had experienced a great increase during this time. Now, A top-tier Stage 3 Great Emperor would not be able to handle his soul attack when he cast it together with the soul-swallowing pearl and the 3 Divine Light's secret skill. Even experts in the Divine Demon realm would experience a short blank in their consciousness when Jian Wushuang's soul attacks land on them. This short blank was enough for Jian Wushuang to cast his sword skills without giving his opponents a chance to defend themselves from the attacks. Fifth, Jian Wushuang's sword light flickered again as another head was detached from its body. Within moments, another sword light, which looked like fresh blood, penetrated the head of another expert in the Divine Demon realm. This expert died with both of his eyes wide open, unable to believe how he had died at the hands of Jian Wushuang. The sixth, Jian Wushuang continued the massacre with a cold attitude. A blurry light shrouded 2 other experts in the Divine Demon realm. Both of these experts only had ordinary fighting powers. Hence both experienced a short blank in their consciousness, even though Jian Wushuang had targeted both of them with a single soul attack. Pft, pft. The blade entered their bodies, and the dead bodies fell towards the ground below. The eighth, Jian Wushuang said casually. The 20 experts in the Divine Demon realm initially had not taken Jian Wushuang seriously at all, as they had thought he was not a threat. They had severely underestimated Jian Wushuang. Once the battle began, Jian Wushuang's fighting power made the shiver in fear. Too fast. His speed is too fast, and we cannot catch up to him. He is not only enlightened to the space-time rules of order, he also excels in using this power. His sword skills are very terrifying. He must have made the cut to become an amateur in sword doctrine. Amateur? What a joke. He must have reached initial success. Furthermore, his soul attack is far too powerful. We cannot stop it. Terrifying shrieks were heard across the battlefield. These experts in the Divine Demon realm were completely shocked by Jian Wushuang's fighting power. His understanding and his use of space-time rules of order to reach incredible speed was amazing. His sophisticated sword skills were at the level of initial success in the sword doctrine. There was also the horrifying and unstoppable soul attack. The combination of these 3 made Jian Wushuang their worst nightmare. Massacre. Ever since the battle started, it had been a one-sided massacre. Even though there were more than 20 experts in the Divine Demon realm, they didn't work together. Hence they were not a threat to Jian Wushuang at all. Jian Wushuang could continue the massacre without worrying. No one could stop his soul attack. No one could be compared to his sword skills. Initial success stage in sword doctrine. Far too few experts in the Divine Demon realm could reach this stage even back in the absolute beginning divine world. Even if someone did, their fighting power would be restricted, as they would be under the restrictions of heaven and earth. However, Jian Wushuang was completely unaffected by the restrictions of heaven and earth. He could use every single scrap of his fighting power to the fullest. Within moments, 11 out of the 20 experts in the Divine Demon realm had been killed by Jian Wushuang. That was about half of the total number. Too terrifying. The Sword Emperor is too terrifying. Who said we only needed to beware of Emperor Bai? What is going on with the Sword Emperor? Emperor Bai? He is definitely not as terrifying as the Sword Emperor. We were tricked. We were all tricked. The strongest man within the Sanctuary Alliance is not Emperor Bai, but the Sword Emperor. Run! Hurry up, escape! Hysterical roars from these experts were here on the battlefield. The remaining 10 experts in the Divine Demon realm were trembling in fear. They lost the courage to battle Jian Wushuang as they started to run away. Within moments, in under 2 breaths, about half of the experts there had been killed. If Jian Wushuang were to kill the remaining experts, he would do so within the time of a single breath. There was no way they could beat Jian Wushuang. If they continued to fight, they would definitely die. They knew this well, hence the experts all started to run away. As for Lord Jiao, even though the reward of a Divine Demon Nirvana elixir was of very high value, it could only entice these experts to fight, not risk their lives. If they stayed and fought, they would definitely die. No one would die for Lord Jiao. Even Lord Jiao's subordinate, Chu He, escaped without hesitation. Within moments, 11 of the experts had died while the remaining escaped out of sight. Jian Wushuang stood there coldly, even after killing 11 experts in the divine demon realm. It was as though he was killing 11 insignificant people. Chapter 2250, Matrix Path 3. The sight of those eyes made their spines tingle. Lei Yan's legs went soft. Luckily Qin Feng was fast and immediately grabbed his shoulder. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he nodded. They were a crowd of nearly 10,000 people. But there was barely any noise. Yi Qingtang was right at the front. She moved gracefully and steadily. The demon child did not fully believe in Yi Qingtang's words. So not only did he not make any noise, he only stepped exactly where Yi Qingtang stepped previously, not differing even an inch. After traveling for several meters, nothing strange happened. But at this moment, an ominous wind suddenly appeared from the deeper regions of the tomb. Suddenly, a vast number of gray-white ghoulish figures flowed onto the matrix path. Arg! The sudden appearance of those ghouls shocked everyone. Forgetting Yi Qingtang's warning, someone instinctively screamed. In the next second, all the evil demon statues came to life. The person who screamed finally realized things were not right. Under the shadow of death, he charged through the crowd and fled to the back, trying to flee from this matrix path, to escape this tomb. His heavy footsteps seemed to startle all the evil demons. The statues on both sides immediately moved and dashed toward the man. Squish! A weird noise rang out. Within mere seconds, a stone trident pierced right through the person's body, pinning the person to the ground. That person managed to flee a good distance, and had just reached Lei Yan and his group. But in the next second, he was pinned to the ground by that trident. Lei Yan and the rest widened their eyes in shock. That person was still alive. His eyes were wide with fear and he reached out. Save me. I still want to. Before he could complete his sentence, that person's face stiffened. His legs were being lifted and twisted. Sounds of bones cracking could be heard. It was like an invisible force had gripped this person's limbs. His legs were twisted into a pretzel shape while his arms were pulled backward, and then tied in a dead knot. Shattered bone pierced through his flesh, fresh blood spraying all over the faces of Lei Yan and his group. Watching this gory scene up close, Lei Yan couldn't help wanting to scream. Luckily he had eaten the mute elixir, otherwise good grief. Lei Yan didn't even dare to think about it. The tortured man was on his dying breath. The trident flew back into the hands of one of the evil demons, bringing the man with it. Licking the bloodied man, the evil demon's long tongue went all over the gruesome body before calm finally descended. It was silent again, and all the evil demons went back to their original positions. Now everyone finally understood why those first batch of men who had rushed in had all died in that twisted manner. Elder Feng's face looked rather grim. Looking at those floating gray-white ghoul figures, he instinctively made to continue forward. But at this moment, he suddenly felt something tugging at his leg. He looked down, and saw a newborn infant, who looked as if he had just come out of his mother's womb. He reached out his bloodied hands, and was grabbing the hem of Elder Feng's trousers. That infant was covered in blood and his eyes were gouged out, leaving behind 2 pitch-black holes. Elder Feng felt his scalp go numb. He bit his tongue and swallowed down the scream that has threatened to burst out of his throat. Feeling the pain, the tugging on his trousers lessened slightly. Chapter 2251. Legacy Place 1. The infant was only a hallucination. This matrix path would dig into one's deepest fears. Upon this godforsaken path, each and every person saw different remnants of their horror-spawned imaginations. The scene before their eyes seemed to transform. Some of the weaker practitioners experienced more vivid hallucinations, so much so that they could barely tell where they were now. Laughter, sobs, wails sounded out. To prevent themselves from making any noise triggered by the sudden surge of emotions, the demon child and the rest shut their eyes. Anyone who uttered even a single sound all died. The sounds of stone grinding echoed continuously in the ears of the crowd, sending those who disturbed the evil demons straight to hell. The smell of blood permeated the air, becoming increasingly intense. Everyone felt like they were submerged in a massive pool of blood. The scent of blood was the only thing they could smell in the air. Yi Qingtang listened impassively to the sounds behind her. She had seen that Mu Ziying was unconscious and should not be affected by the matrix path. So she should be safe. The matrix path was long, and they traveled for quite a while. Yi Qingtang finally spoke. We have passed the matrix path. The demon child finally opened his eyes. He turned and saw strange blue flames floating upon the dark, gloomy matrix path. Those who die in the tomb will become a part of it, Yi Qingtang said. The souls of those who died in the Fiend Celestial's tomb would become part of the tomb forever, unable to leave. Nearly 10,000 people had stepped onto the matrix path, but only about 6,000 were left now. And this was already after Yi Qingtang had given them a warning. They knew they were not supposed to make any noise, but the moment those hallucinations appeared, those who were not mentally strong enough ended up dying. Mighty One, thank you for your warning. Elder Feng was already drenched in cold sweat. His suspicion toward Yi Qingtang had now reduced by half. The matrix path was irrefutably treacherous. If Yi Qingtang had not warned them not to make any noise, they would not know of the secret behind it. The moment they stepped onto it, Yi Qingtang could have found a way to have them all annihilated. But she didn't do so. It was clear that she didn't bear them any ill will. At this thought, the crowd's belief in Yi Qingtang's words about the inheritance of the Fiend Celestials will increase. Another notion also arose in their minds. If they could inherit the Fiend Celestial's will, what else would they need to be afraid of? By then none of the other factions, or even the Temple of Paragon, would be able to do anything to them. They would fear no one. Yi Qingtang noticed the reactions of the remaining crowd. She knew that her earlier actions had gained some of their trust, and she heaved a secret sigh of relief. But Yi Qingtang had no intention of really leading them into the deepest regions of the tomb. She just wanted to have the crowd let down their guard, so that she had a chance to save Mu Ziying. Mighty One, we have to depend on you for what follows next. The people spoke in a much more respectful tone now. Yi Qingtang did not reply immediately. Depend on her? Yi Qingtang had never entered the Fiend Celestial's tomb before. She just happened to have heard the details about the matrix path from someone in her previous life. From here on, Yi Qingtang wasn't 100% confident of moving safely within the tomb. Who knew if those rumors in her previous life would pan out as expected? Chapter 2252. Legacy Place 2. In a place like this, the less time spent here the better. Eyes scanning the crowd, Yi Qingtang finally confirmed that Mu Ziying had been safely brought over by the Rising Dragon Island men. The sight relaxed her a little. Just as Yi Qingtang was about to seize this opportunity to herd these people over to her desired location, she suddenly spied several familiar figures from the corner of her eye. Lei Yan and the rest were just teenagers, and their experience through the matrix path had exhausted them. If they hadn't eaten the mute elixirs, they would have already all been dead meat. Just the sight of those hallucinations was enough to make them scream their lungs out. The ragtag bunch was right at the end of the group. They had witnessed every single gory mishap that had happened to those before them. Luckily the tomb was rather dim. Otherwise, their legs would have gone all soft if they had been able to clearly see the bloody massacre of those people by the evil demons. Yi Qingtang. When did those brats follow them in? Yi Qingtang had planned to lure these people to her destination, before making an excuse to rescue Mu Ziying and then fleeing. She never expected Lei Yan and those brats to have followed them in. It looked like they must have followed the group after Mu Ziying was captured. Yi Qingtang suddenly felt very tired. It was already very difficult to escape with one Mu Ziying. Now those few brats have all come to join the party. Her temples throbbed painfully. She desperately wished to just fling those damn brats far away. They were gutsy. Those few brats dared to dream of snatching Mu Ziying back from the Rising Dragon Island men? Yi Qingtang took a deep breath to suppress the violent impulse to beat them up. Thereafter, her mind raced as she thought of how she would have to make adjustments to her earlier plan. At this thought, Yi Qingtang led the group forward. The Fiend Celestial's tomb was very big, far more expansive than any of them expected. In her previous life, Yi Qingtang once heard someone, who had personally visited the tomb, say that the tomb actually took up the entire underground space beneath the whole Evil Soul Forest. It would take at least a month to walk one full round, and dangers were lurking everywhere. Even if one knew of the traps within, there was still a very high possibility of death. Yi Qingtang was not confident in continuing inward, but luckily, the place where she planned to lead the group was near the entrance. The crowd muddled through the darkness for a long time, before feeling like they had entered a strange underground palace. The huge palace hall had 12 massive doors. A different beast was carved above each door. The crowd had just stepped in when blue flames lit up on the walls of the underground palace. The blue flames brightened up this strange-looking underground palace. "Where is this place?" the crowd asked after seeing Yi Qingtang stop, right in the center of the palace. "The Legacy Place," Yi Qingtang replied. "Legacy Place?" The crowd was taken aback. Was the black-robed person telling the truth? Did the Fiend Celestial really need to find a person to inherit his will? The various factions were all tempted by the desire to try. By this point, inheriting the Fiend Celestials will have become even more important than any hidden treasure. Yi Qingtang was in no hurry to speak, and the various factions continued to daydream. Elder Feng and the rest examined the inside of this underground palace. When they approached those 12 doors, they could clearly feel intense demonic energies radiating from the gaps between the doors and walls. Elder Feng's face shifted slightly, and he asked the demon child in a low voice, "What do you think?" Chapter 2253, Legacy Place 3. The demon child narrowed his eyes. The demon energies here are very intense. I wonder what kind of power exists behind those doors. Don't tell me the black-robed person is speaking the truth? Could it be that the Fiend Celestial's will is behind those doors? Elder Feng's eyes flashed. I cannot be sure. The demon child frowned. No one had ever really entered the Fiend Celestial's tomb before. To them this was all unprecedented. Even now they still had doubts about Yi Qingtang's real identity. So of course they remained suspicious of her words. The demon child looked toward Yi Qingtang, but she just stood there in silence in the middle of the underground palace. So the demon child asked, "Mighty One, are we to enter these doors?" Yi Qingtang put on a profound manner. Yes and no. The demon child narrowed his eyes. Yi Qingtang said, I do not know who is the Fiend Celestial's chosen successor. I only know that these doors are not for just anyone to enter. It was prepared only for the chosen one. Everyone was shocked by Yi Qingtang's words. If she had made them enter those doors immediately, they would probably be suspicious. But now she didn't want them to enter? Mighty One, I am a bit confused by your words. Since you are the guide, and have led us to this place, why aren't you letting us enter those doors? Elder Feng asked. Yi Qingtang replied, I am the guide only for the chosen one, not for all of you. Everyone's expression changed. Oh, I wonder how you will determine who the chosen one is? The demon child asked. Yi Qingtang remained silent as if she didn't know. Everyone knew that if not for the Temple of Paragon's news, there would not be such a huge number of people gathering here. If Yi Qingtang's words were true, it was highly likely that the first person to step into the Fiend Celestial's tomb was the chosen one. Yi Qingtang's obstruction and silence was inciting their desire for the Fiend Celestial's will. Almost unconsciously their suspicions lessened. Mighty One, if you cannot determine who it is, why don't we let the Fiend Celestial's will personally choose the fated one? Wouldn't that be more accurate? Shi Shangfei suddenly spoke up. How? Yi Qingtang asked. Mighty One, you said earlier that the Fiend Celestial himself would choose the fated one. I think that for the time being, you are unable to determine which of us is the chosen one. Why don't you allow us to enter these doors? And the Fiend Celestial will naturally know who is the destined one. There's no need for you to vex over this issue then. Shi Shangfei explained. Yi Qingtang remained silent, but the crowd became thoughtful at Shi Shangfei's words. No one knew how the Fiend Celestial's will would choose his successor. Since the fated one was amongst them, it was only natural they all hoped that they would be the lucky one. Obtaining the Fiend Celestial's will was the equivalent of rising to the very top of the second domain. This level of power was fatally alluring to anyone. No. Yi Qingtang immediately objected. But the more she objected, the more the people desired it. There is logic to Division Head Shi's words. Since you cannot determine who the fated one is, are we to stand here forever? Even the chosen one himself doesn't know if he is the one. In standing here we are merely wasting time. Instead of having you vex over this, since it's the Fiend Celestial's will, he will naturally choose the correct person. Even if a large number of people enter, it wouldn't have any effect on the Fiend Celestial's will, right? Elder Feng spoke up. Chapter 2254. Legacy Place 4. As the crowd had no idea how to open those doors, naturally they were forced to get Yi Qingtang's assent. Even then Yi Qingtang refused to answer, and if anything, her resolute silence whetted everyone's appetite. Their earlier suspicion toward Yi Qingtang had now completely dispelled. Yi Qingtang was well aware of the principle of reverse psychology. If she had immediately asked them to enter those doors, they would be afraid to even put half a foot inside. But if she refused to let them in, they would become even more convinced of her words. It was human nature for a person to think they were very smart. If she could make appropriate use of this kind of thinking, she would be able to achieve her result. Never mind then, Yi Qingtang said in a low voice. But I must warn you that after you all enter the doors, the moment the successor is chosen, the rest of you must immediately come out. Under no circumstances are you to disturb the passing on of the will. Everyone grew curious at Yi Qingtang's words. Disturb? Mighty One, what do you mean by that? Someone asked. Yi Qingtang put on a stern manner. The moment the Fiend Celestial begins the inheritance process, it will not stop. If anyone disturbs it, the inheritance will go into disarray. None of you will be able to bear the consequences if the chosen one is unable to take on all of the Fiend Celestial's will. It was a harsh warning by Yi Qingtang, but the crowd didn't feel that way after hearing her words. If anything, the minds of Elder Feng and the rest immediately raced 1,000,000 miles a minute. Once the inheritance process started, it could not be stopped. And according to this black-robed person, the inheritance of the will would go into disarray if the process was disturbed. Everyone at present were intelligent beings. Their minds raced with all sorts of thoughts and ideas. Did this mean they could obtain the Fiend Celestial's will themselves if they killed the destined one? Within just a few seconds, all the factions had this same idea. The formerly harmonious and peaceful atmosphere suddenly turned tense and quietly malicious. It was apparent that the destined one was amongst them. As long as they could all enter, the inheritance process would begin. By then, as long as they kill off the other factions, they would be able to obtain the Fiend Celestial's legacy, but they had to confirm the black-robed person's words first. The crowd didn't reveal their ambitions. Only by entering the door would they be able to confirm if Yi Qingtang was speaking the truth. Yi Qingtang quietly observed the crowd's reaction before she continued. Are you ready? Yes, Mighty One. Yi Qingtang nodded and walked to the first door. Secretly, she had the Night Soul Beast activate the opening mechanism. The massive door suddenly opened, and an intense demon energy surged out. It was an illusory space, and inside floated the Fiend Celestial's mind. Elder Feng felt his heart shudder at the sight. He glanced at Yi Qingtang to make sure she had no objections to them stepping forward. Even so, he was still careful to let those around him enter first. The other factions each dispatched one person to enter first. After those men entered and walked for some distance, they suddenly stopped. Is this the voice of the Fiend Celestial? Legacy Destined One Ha. One of the men suddenly smiled. He muttered to himself, and those keywords were overheard by everyone. The black-robed person was speaking the truth. This was really the legacy place. The Fiend Celestial's will. In a flash, the various factions charged toward the door. No one wanted to miss this golden opportunity. Chapter 2255. Escape 1. Yi Qingtang looked on with cold eyes as the crowd surged into the door. She secretly glanced to the side. As expected, lured by the prospect of obtaining the legacy, the Rising Dragon Island men left the unconscious Mu Ziying alone outside the door. None of the major factions would let go of this great chance to obtain the Fiend Celestial's will. They would not leave any one of their men outside the door, as this would only decrease their chances of winning. Moreover, Mu Ziying was already unconscious. Whatever reward the Rising Dragon Island would gain from her kidnapping would not be as valuable as the Fiend Celestial's will. Lei Yan and the others also didn't enter the door. They had come to rescue Mu Ziying, and now that everyone had entered the door, they immediately knew this was their chance. But they saw that the black-robed Yi Qingtang was standing outside the door with the Night Soul Beast. They hesitated, but believed that she would not bother with them. So they reached out to grab Mu Ziying. All the while Qin Feng kept his eye on Yi Qingtang as they did so, deeply afraid that this mysterious black-robed person would move against them. Yi Qingtang heaved a secret sigh of relief on seeing those brats carrying Mu Ziying away. But now, she was focusing her attention on what was happening behind that door. After the various factions rushed in, they behaved like demons, madly searching for something in that illusory space. The door suddenly closed up. With a loud bang, everyone was now trapped inside. In the next second, Yi Qingtang turned and said to the vigilant Qin Feng and gang, "Leave." Qin Feng and the rest were taken aback. After confirming that she was talking to them, they were filled with suspicion. They stared vigilantly at Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang was speechless, but now was not the time to get into a discussion. She could already hear the sounds of fighting from behind that door. Inheriting the Fiend Celestial's will. It was all just bullshit dreamed up by Yi Qingtang to deceive those people. In her previous life, Yi Qingtang had heard many stories about the Fiend Celestial's tomb, and knew that several illusory doors existed not far from the entrance. These doors could conjure what you most desired. Since Yi Qingtang appeared, she had been quietly selling the idea of the Fiend Celestial's will to those factions. By the time they entered the tomb, passed the Matrix path, and arrived at the illusory doors, the desire that Yi Qingtang had implanted in everyone's subconscious was now enough to become an illusion. As long as they stepped beyond this door, their most desired thing would appear. And at this moment, the one thing which all those people most desired was the Fiend Celestial's will, which Yi Qingtang had been quietly guiding their subconscious toward. This was also why Yi Qingtang dared to hoodwink these major factions. But the illusion would not last for long. After the various factions started fighting, their mindsets would start to change, and the illusions would also evolve. With their sharp eyes, it wouldn't take long for them to realize that something was off. Yi Qingtang had to quickly get Mu Ziying away before they realized this. Lei Yan and the rest were clearly distrustful of the black-robed person. They instinctively shielded Mu Ziying and took up a protective stance. "Mighty One, we have no intention of obtaining the Fiend Celestial's will. We came into the tomb by accident. Mighty One, please," Yinshin spoke politely. After all, they did not wish to engage this black-robed person who could control a Night Soul Beast. Chapter 2256, Escape to Yi Qingtang. There was not much time left. The illusory door was not as solid as the one at the entrance. If the major factions managed to break their way out, it would be a one-way road to hell for them. Yi Qingtang shed her disguise and took off her black robe. The nervous teenagers were completely dumbstruck after Yi Qingtang revealed herself. Boss? Lei Yan widened his eyes in disbelief. Looking at that familiar face, he didn't dare to believe his own eyes. "I asked you to stay put. Why are you so disobedient?" Yi Qingtang scolded. That familiar voice, that familiar face, that familiar manner. All the teenagers were stunned. "Is it really Boss? Boss, when did you become the protector of the Fiend Celestial's tomb?" Nangong Lai asked in astonishment. Yun Chun was the most shocked. He had already suspected that Yi Qing was hiding his true identity. But now? What protector? "It's just to trick those fools," Yi Qing said. Those fools. The corners of the teenagers' lips twitched when they thought about those powerful practitioners behind the door. "We have no time to waste. Follow me now. If they break through that door, we will all die here," Yi Qing stated as she led Lei Yan and the rest to the middle door. Boss, isn't the entrance behind us? Jingzai asked. Yi Qing explained as he walked. That's the entrance. You can enter but you cannot exit. Just follow me. Remember, follow me closely. One could only enter and not exit via the matrix path. Otherwise, any bit of noise would trigger an attack by the evil demon statues. Although Yi Qingtang had heard many stories about the Fiend Celestial's tomb in her previous life, she was not 100% sure if those stories were entirely accurate. If not for the sake of rescuing Mu Ziying, she would never step into such a dangerous place. Lei Yan and the rest didn't dare to spend any more time talking. With Mu Ziying in their arms, they followed close behind. But as they gazed at Yi Qing's back profile, the faces of the teenagers became increasingly curious. Boss, why does he know so much about the Fiend Celestial's tomb? If he hadn't revealed himself, I would never have thought that the black-robed person was him. The more Lei Yan thought about it, the more amazed he became. When the black-robed person first appeared, he was so dominant and powerful. Even the major factions were all subdued by him. Who could have known that it was their teacher who was underneath those black robes? I am even more curious as to whether that thing beside Boss is really the Night Soul Beast? Nangong Lai mused with a perplexed expression. Yi Qingtang didn't have the time to explain herself now. She just searched her memories for everything related to the Fiend Celestial's tomb, so that they could avoid any hidden traps. Soon after Yi Qingtang and her group left, the major factions behind that illusory door saw that their surroundings had started to morph as they fought each other. The various factions had started fighting to get the Fiend Celestial's will. Under the influence of pain and the smell of blood, they started to become more clear-headed. Stop! The demon child hollered. The power of a divine Lord 8th heaven-level practitioner swept across the place. Everyone stopped. You bunch of fools. We have been duped. Where is the Fiend Celestial's will? The demon child snapped in a cold voice. Chapter 2257, Escape 3. Everyone was stunned by his words. In the next moment, they reassessed their surroundings. Although the scene remained the same, the earlier Fiend Celestial energy had completely disappeared. This was all an illusion. There is no Fiend Celestial's will. There's something wrong with that black-robed person. The demon child narrowed his eyes. As the most powerful, he was the first to realize something was wrong. Even so, he had also been duped. On the other side, Yi Qingtang led the teenagers through the darkness. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared before them. What's that? Lei Yan asked timidly. Yi Qingtang didn't reply, but only stepped forward. In the murky darkness, a glowing river had appeared before them. Black figures danced upon the surface of the water. Yi Qingtang had to lean closer to see clearly. Those black figures were monsters. The monsters had bat-like wings, but their bodies were similar to those evil demon statues on the Matrix path, just much smaller. Those flying evil demons held all sorts of weapons, their eyes radiating with a pale blue light. Moments later, Lei Yan and the others caught up and saw those flying evil demons. Their faces instantly turned grim. Suddenly, an alluring singing voice drifted over. The song was melodious and filled with a woman's charm. It sounded like it was coming from afar, but gradually approaching. Who is singing? Qin Feng frowned. Yi Qingtang looked toward the surface of the water. Lit by the light, several blurry figures slowly appeared beneath the surface of the water. Nervous, Lei Yan and the rest took a step backward, keeping their eyes fixed upon the water. The sound of water accompanied the singing. The song seemed to possess a strange power. It felt like it could dispel all fears. As the singing continued, the formerly frightened teenagers suddenly took a step toward the water. Amidst the darkness, light shone out of the water, as if a star had dropped into the water. A beautiful figure had quietly swum to the side of the river. She had a gorgeous face with exquisite flawless features, but faint scales grew on the sides of her cheeks. The beautiful woman popped her head out of the water, her lustrous long hair cascading down onto her pristine shoulders. Those deep blue eyes sparkled as that melodious voice came out from between her slightly parted red lips. It was like the sound of nature itself. Qin Feng was bewitched. There were plenty of beautiful women in the world, and Qin Feng had always felt that he would never be bewitched by a woman's looks. But now, all he could see was this gorgeous lady. Somehow, he was now bent over and the woman in the water reached out one slender, fair arm, gently caressing Qin Feng's cheek. She seemed to be smiling, with her eyes as intoxicating as the finest wines. Qin Feng. Yi Qingtang's voice suddenly rang out beside his ear. Shocked, Qin Feng realized that he was now kneeling by the river, and the woman's arms were looped around his neck. Qin Feng was just one arm's length away from falling into the water. Before Qin Feng realized what was happening, Yi Qingtang suddenly reached out to drag him away. Just as she did so, she felt a powerful force, and the beautiful woman's face twisted. Chapter 2258. Escape 4. The woman watched as her prey was being dragged away, and that beautiful face instantly morphed into a heinous and demonic expression. Roar! She opened her jaws wide, revealing sharp teeth. Springing out of the water, it instantly exposed her lower body to Qin Feng. It was a rotting fishtail. Half the scales had already rotted away and fused with the flesh. Qin Feng instantly paled. After Yi Qingtang tossed him to the side, she shot a black flame out from her hand, driving the mermaid monster back into the water. He fell to the floor in a daze. At this moment, he finally noticed that Lei Yan and the rest had also somehow walked to the edge of the river. And in the water in front of each of them was an exceptionally beautiful woman. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. The black flame in her hand morphed into a fiery dragon, shooting straight toward those monsters. The high heat from the flames broke off the melodious singing voices of those beautiful women. Ear-piercing shrieks echoed through the air as their lovely faces morphed into heinous expressions. With a splash, they plopped back into the water. Lei Yan and the rest were still in a daze as Yi Qingtang dragged them all back. Yi Qingtang lit a wall of fire around the edge of the water using her black flame. Endless monstrous shrieks could be heard from behind that wall. What was that? Jing Zhe collapsed to the floor, still in a daze. He had no idea what just happened. He just remembered seeing a beautiful face and that alluring singing voice. Are those mermaids? Yin Shen asked. He had heard legends of half-human, half-fish creatures amongst the Sea Clan. But these mermaids appeared to be different from the legends. Yes and no. They used to be mermaids, but now they are just monsters which have been transformed by the demon energy of the Fiend Celestial. Yi Qingtang replied coldly. These mermaids had already died. But because of the Fiend Celestial's lingering energy, as well as the power of this tomb, they were transformed into undead monsters. Their voices were full of allure, and anyone who heard them would be instantly seduced, slowly being pulled into the river to be forever trapped in the watery depths. They would then become part of the tomb. Boss, should we take a detour then? These things are too horrifying. Lei Yan just felt like crying. What kind of godforsaken place was this? There's no other route. We have to go through this river, Yi Qingtang said. But, Yi Qingtang didn't say anything more. Taking out a rope, she tied them all together in a line. Close off your 5 senses and follow me into the water. I will take you across the river. To leave this tomb, they would have to exit from the opening on the other side. There was no way they could avoid this river. Boss, aren't you worried about being bewitched by those monsters? Who do you think I am? Lei Yan was stunned. Yi Qingtang smiled. I am your boss. Of course I will try my best to bring you all out of here safe and sound. The teenagers were slightly taken aback by Yi Qing's words. Since stepping into this tomb, they had been filled with fear and apprehension at everything they had witnessed. But Yi Qing's words had immediately wiped away the unease in their hearts. It was as though, as long as he was around, all problems could be resolved. After tying everyone properly, Yi Qingtang gave Mu Ziying an elixir. Suddenly, she heard a series of faint voices, and her face immediately darkened. Chapter 2259. Escape 5. Things were not looking good. The major factions had probably already discovered something was wrong, and were trying to leave the illusory space. It would not take long before they came chasing after them. She had to take them across the river as soon as possible. Close off your senses, Yi Qingtang commanded. Dispelling the flaming wall, she leaped forward, diving straight into the dark river water. Lei Yan and the rest were likewise pulled into the water. The night soul beast was still in a daze by the side when it was dragged into the water by Yi Qingtang. The night soul beast. But since it had already signed a contract with Yi Qingtang, as much as it wanted to, it couldn't just kick Yi Qingtang aside now and escape on its own. The chilly water enveloped them. Lei Yan and the rest had already shut their senses, but allowed their bodies to maintain a swimming mode. In the darkness of the water, they could not see or hear anything. Only the rope tied at their waists guided them forward. Yi Qingtang was right at the front. She was the only one who could see. Right after diving into the water, countless undead mermaids appeared from the depths of the river. They looked like a swarm of fish, swimming toward them. Those undead mermaids opened their jaws wide, charging madly at the group and surrounding them. Lei Yan and the rest had shut their senses and didn't know what was happening. The mermaids' singing voices echoed through the water. If one closed his eyes and just listened, it was intoxicating. But the sight of those heinous faces was spine-chilling. Yi Qingtang swam quickly, continuously shooting out black flames from her hands to break through the mermaids blocking their way. Thankfully, those mermaids were not very powerful. Their most terrifying trait was their ability to seduce. They could make someone drown without him even realizing it. Then his body would decay and become their food. Soon after, his soul would forever be trapped in this tomb. But as long as one could fend against the allure of those undead mermaids, they weren't that terrifying. Yi Qingtang had the heart of the heavenly Tao and the deity ocean inside her body. This gave her an exceptionally strong mental power, and so these undead mermaids did not affect her. Even so, just the sight of being surrounded by so many undead mermaids was enough to make one's heart shudder. It was a very long river, and who knew how long it would take before they reached the end? Countless undead mermaids swam continuously around them, trying to lure these people into the watery depths. Yi Qingtang continued to make her way forward. Luckily, the night soul beast was around, and those mermaids did not dare to attack them directly. As the guardian beast of the evil soil forest, the night soul beast was born from the fiend celestial's power. To these undead mermaids, who were not that powerful, the night soul beast had a certain subduing effect. This was also why Yi Qingtang dared to bring everyone into the water. Without the night soul beast, those mermaids would probably have already pounced on them and devoured them down to the bone. Yi Qingtang suddenly discovered a beam of light in the water. The light originated from somewhere in the depths of the river. Yi Qingtang's eyes lit up. In her previous life, people who visited the tomb said that this river was boundless. One would never be able to swim from end to end. So there was only one way to leave this boundless river, and it was in the depths of the river. Yi Qingtang immediately dragged Lei Yan and the rest toward that beam of light in the depths. The immense water pressure made Yi Qingtang feel like her internal organs were being squeezed together. If she didn't use her spirit energy to protect her body, this tremendous pressure was enough to squash a human into paste. Chapter 2260, Treasure Trove 1. There was a massive tunnel where the glowing light seemed to emanate from. Yi Qingtang could see it now. Sparking precious jewels were embedded on the two sides of the tunnel. The river water appeared to be sealed off from the tunnel, unable to seep in at all. On and on Yi Qingtang surged forward, as she led Lei Yan and the others straight into the tunnel, drenched from swimming in the river. All the water dripping off their bodies immediately evaporated once they entered the tunnel. It was only then that Yi Qingtang woke them up. The teenagers realized that they had somehow arrived at a tunnel. Turning around, they saw countless undead mermaids swimming in the water behind them. "Boss, you really managed to bring us all here." Nangonglai stared at Yi Qing in amazement. "Let's take a look at Ziying first," Yi Qing said. Yunshin put down the unconscious Mu Ziying. Although she was covered in bruises, none of them appeared to be critical. However, her face was rather pale. Yi Qingtang fed her an elixir, and in the blink of an eye, Mu Ziying woke up. Right before she opened her eyes, Her brows wrinkled instinctively. But after lifting her lids and seeing those familiar faces before her, Mu Ziying was completely dumbstruck. Boss! Boss! Hadn't she been captured by those rising Dragon Island men? What had happened? Surprised. Haha. Little senior sister, you didn't expect this, right? We all came to save you. Lei Yin grinned. Still in a daze, Mu Ziying noticed Yi Qing and averted her gaze slightly. Lei Yin and Nangong Lai told her all about how they merged into the crowd, how Yi Qing deceived all the major factions, and so they had managed to save her. Hearing all that with a trembling heart, Mu Ziying desperately wished to bury her head in her chest. I have been a burden to everyone. As young as Mu Ziying was, even she knew that it would not be that easy to leave this fiend celestial's tomb. Yi Qing and the others had taken the risk to come into this dangerous place, all because of her. A warm hand suddenly landed on top of Mu Ziying's head. As Mu Ziying lifted her head, she looked into Yi Qing's smiling eyes. Can you walk? Yi Qing asked. Mu Ziying was taken aback. She nodded in bewilderment. We cannot linger here. If you are tired, have them carry you. Yi Qing spoke in a mild voice. The rising Dragon Island matter was an accident. She would not blame anyone for this kind of accident. Mu Ziying nodded silently, before following Yi Qingtang. Boss, this tunnel looks much brighter than the other areas of the tomb. Does this mean we can leave soon? Lei Yin asked eagerly. He really didn't wish to stay here a second longer. Who knew how many more terrifying things existed here? Yi Qingtang didn't reply. In her previous life, there was a lot of information about the Fiend Celestial's tomb, but also a lot of different versions. Someone once said that there was more than one tunnel in the depths of the boundless river. Even Yi Qingtang could not be sure where they were now. Seeing that Yi Qing had remained silent, the others also obediently kept quiet. They remembered clearly what happened at the Matrix Path earlier. Who knew what would happen in this tomb? The glowing tunnel seemed to have no end. Having gotten to this point, Yi Qingtang had no choice but to continue leading the group forward. Chapter 2261. Treasure Trove 2. The nose of the Night Soul Beast following behind Yi Qingtang twitched. It seemed to have detected something. But after sneaking a look at Yi Qingtang, and making sure that she didn't have any special reaction, it quietly narrowed its eyes. After walking for a long time in the endless tunnel, a golden glow appeared somewhere toward the front. The glow was exceptionally eye-catching in the pitch-black tomb. No matter what, it was human instinct to head towards the light. Lei Yin and the rest instinctively quickened their steps. But everyone was stunned when they reached it. A sea of dazzling gold greeted them. Countless jewels piled as high as mountains. Gold and silver precious artifacts were strewn across the ground like gravel, filling up every single crook and cranny. It was so expansive that one couldn't see the other side. All one could see were the dazzling treasures. What is this place? Nangong Lai instinctively clutched his heart. He was from a major family clan, and had never lacked riches. But at this very moment, he finally knew what was called a hidden treasure trove. Mountains of gold spanning several hundred meters in height, formed by pieces of gold piled together, with countless jewels interspersed between, sparkling and lustrous. Could this be the Fiend Celestial's hidden treasures? Even the usually steady Jing, they couldn't resist gasping at the sight of these spectacular golden mountains and silver seas. My goodness, is that a dragon's saliva jewel? Lei Yin widened his eyes in disbelief. He saw a dragon's saliva jewel, as big as his head nestled casually in a pile of jewels. Did I see correctly? If I tell my grandfather that there is a dragon's saliva jewel as big as my head, he will think I have gone mad. Lei Yin held his forehead, trying to calm himself down. Yi Qingtang was expressionless. She just continued walking, entering the sea of treasures. With every step taken, clear tinkling sounds rang out from the jewels beneath her feet. These treasures had been tossed everywhere, piled together like garbage. It was a very tempting sight. Yi Qingtang had once seen the Divine Phoenix's treasure stash, and she knew just how big it was. And this treasure trove here was not at all inferior to the Divine Phoenix's stash. In fact, it might be even bigger. The amount of treasure here was enough to adorn every single person, in any one of the mainlands in the second domain from head to toe. And there would still probably be some left over. The teenagers had never seen so much riches. They were all in a daze. Damn! No wonder the major factions were all so desperate to enter the Fiend Celestial's tomb. So this is the treasure they were seeking. This is really something worth going mad for. Nangong Lai felt increasingly astounded. The sight of all those treasures, as uncountable as the stars in the sky, truly left him dumbstruck. Even the most useless cultivator could beat those so-called powerful practitioners if he could get his hands on one of these precious artifacts. I say, shall we pick a few? See who dares to pick on us after we return to the academy. Lei Yin smiled deviantly. The ears of the other teenagers pricked up at his words. They started to look at the treasures with an appraising eye, as if really trying to find something which they needed. Chapter 2262. Treasure Trove 3. A faint light flashed across the eyes of the Night Soul Beast when it noticed their reactions. It quietly went past an artifact slightly protruding out, and secretly pulled at it. Clack, clack, clack. A pile of gold pieces scattered to the ground, revealing the handle of a sharp sword. That sword handle suddenly gleamed, and Yi Qingtang's attention was immediately drawn to it. Is that the Netherworld sword? Qin Feng was also focused on the sword now. His usually steady gaze was filled with an intense shock. The Netherworld sword was a genuine divine-level weapon. The Qin family was very proficient with swords. At that time, Qin Zhua had led the Qin family to their peak with a sword in hand. So Qin Feng was exceptionally knowledgeable about swords. For a divine-level weapon like the Netherworld sword, he had only seen it in some ancient records. He never imagined that he would get the chance to see it in person. It should be pointed out that even the most useless practitioner would be able to ascend to elite levels with a divine weapon in hand. No one in this world would say no to a divine-level weapon. Qin Feng was mesmerized by the sight of it. The Night Soul Beast glanced at Qin Feng, as if not at all surprised by his reaction. However, it was more concerned about Yi Qingtang's reaction. The Night Soul Beast looked at Yi Qingtang, only to see her still standing in her original spot. She just glanced at the Netherworld sword before looking away, not tempted at all. The Night Soul Beast. It took 2 more steps and casually picked up another divine-level artifact, revealing it to Yi Qingtang. Yin Chun and the others gasped. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang just gave it a mild glance, not exhibiting any particular reaction. By now, the Night Soul Beast looked rather confused. It wanted to try again but saw that Yi Qingtang was now staring at it as it tried to pull out another divine weapon. The Night Soul Beast. Yi Qingtang gave a faint smile. The Night Soul Beast shuddered all over. No one is allowed to touch anything here. Mu Ziying and the others were all shocked by Yi Qingtang's words. Boss. Lei Yin was befuddled. There were so many formidable treasures here, but they couldn't even touch a single one? Where was the logic in that? Don't touch anything if you don't wish to die. Yi Qing stated in a cold voice. The teenagers were all startled by the sudden chilliness in his tone. Faced with such a massive temptation, it was undeniably a major challenge to human nature. Schoolmates who just got to know each other, or even biological brothers, might end up killing each other over such tempting treasures. But now Lei Yin and the others did not understand. But they obediently went over to Yi Qing's side, still casting longing glances at the treasures. Yi Qing's words reminded them of what kind of place this truly was. This was the Fiend Celestial's tomb. Without Yi Qing, they would never make it out of here alive. Yi Qing understood this tomb better than any of them, so they instinctively trusted every single one of his decisions. The Night Soul Beast was astounded. Previously, it saw that those teenagers were already all prepared to make their move. Why did they suddenly stop? Did they really not want these treasures? Impossible. The Night Soul Beast felt very dismal, and Yi Qingtang clearly noticed its reaction. Chapter 2263. Treasure Trove 4. There are many treasures here, but don't you all feel that it's too quiet in here? Yi Qing asked after looking at the confused faces of those teenagers. Boss, what do you mean? Qin Feng asked. Yi Qing surveyed the surroundings. There are dangers everywhere in the Fiend Celestial's tomb. It's illogical for the place where the treasures are stored to be so safe. If I am not wrong, this is the most dangerous place in the tomb. Every single one of these treasures might trigger a trap. I am afraid that if any one of us touches a single thing here, we won't be able to leave this tomb. Yi Qing's words brought a sliver of common sense back to those deliriously tempted teenagers. At this moment, they realized that it was truly too quiet in here. No evil demons, no undead mermaids, no illusions. It was like all these treasures had been laid out nicely before them, for them to choose at will. At this point, Qin Feng and the rest couldn't help feeling relieved. Luckily, they had been too overwhelmed by the choices and didn't immediately reach out to take an item. Otherwise, who knew what kind of trouble they would invite? Can see but cannot touch, this feeling is so. Lei Yin held his face as his heart ached. Yi Qingtang turned to look at the Night Soul Beast. The Night Soul Beast guiltily averted its eyes, trying to pretend as if nothing happened. The hints of a smile flashed past Yi Qingtang's eyes. Originally, she hadn't been sure if there were any dangers hidden within this treasure trove, but the actions of the Night Soul Beast triggered her suspicions. The Night Soul Beast had been forced to sign a contract with her. The contract stipulated that the Night Soul Beast couldn't harm her, but it had been reluctant to sign this contract. It probably hoped that she would die as soon as possible, so that the contract would become void. What a pity that it couldn't harm her itself. That was why it had carried out those actions. Observing the Night Soul Beast's reactions, Yi Qingtang confirmed that the treasures inside this place could not be touched. It was probably a one-way road to hell for whoever took anything. Let's leave this place first. Yi Qingtang looked away. After knowing the thoughts of the Night Soul Beast, she did not want to stay too long at this place. Lei Yin and the others were just teenagers and had little worldly experience. Their way of thinking was also more pure and naive. If they continued to linger in this treasure-filled place, who knew if they would be tempted to do something disastrous? Leading the group, Yi Qingtang sped past those treasures. The treasures were piled as high as mountains, their dazzling sparkle lighting up the entire space. Yi Qingtang was constantly alert to any movements in the surroundings. When she focused, she seemed to hear some faint tinkling sounds coming from some of the further treasure piles. The sound was very faint, as if something was crawling under those piles of treasures. The thing hidden amongst the jewels seemed to be circling Yi Qingtang and her group from a distance. And that faint noise was continuous, echoing subtly around the entire place. A sense of unease rose in Yi Qingtang's heart. She needed to find the exit as soon as possible. What is that? Mu Ziying's voice suddenly rang out from behind. Mu Ziying's body was too weak, so Jingzhe was carrying her. As a result, her line of sight was also higher now. Now Mu Ziying had widened her large eyes, staring at one end of the treasure trove. Yi Qingtang followed Mu Ziying's line of sight and saw a huge skeleton standing upon a mound of treasure. Chapter 2264. Leaving one. Is that the Fiend Celestial skeleton? Lei Yin swallowed hard. That skeleton was colossal. If one were to guess, it was at least 100 meters in height. The mere sight of it chilled them to the bone. Only the chest area was exposed. The bottom half was buried beneath the treasure piles, while the head was swallowed by the darkness of the endlessly high ceiling. Lucky we listened to Boss and didn't take anything. If this is really the skeleton of the Fiend Celestial, even though it's already dead, we will probably die horrible deaths if we plunder its treasures right in front of its skeleton. As Yi Qingtang looked at its curved ribs, she saw it was like a huge cover encasing countless treasures. If one were to look closely, they could see faint green lights sparkling amongst the bones. Yi Qingtang led the group toward that colossal skeleton. Lei Yan and the others hesitated. Boss, should we circle around? We shouldn't disturb the Fiend Celestial, Lei Yan asked timidly. This godforsaken place. Even the statues required peace and quiet. Who knew if this skeleton was the Fiend Celestial? The Fiend Celestial would definitely be even more domineering than those evil demon statues. We cannot circle around it. The teenagers exchanged glances. While they had no idea why Yi Qing was so stubborn, they didn't dare to disobey. So they only followed obediently behind him. Boss had more world experience than them. Just follow boss, you couldn't go wrong with that. There was no way Yi Qingtang would circle around. The sight of that skeleton reminded her of the key to leaving the Fiend Celestial's tomb. However, she had to confirm if the rumors were true. There's a tree there. Yunchen suddenly saw a large, green tree growing right within the massive ribcage. It was a towering tree with expansive branches spreading all across the inside of the ribcage, as if it was an internal organ system. The sight of that vibrant green tree amongst the pile of sparkling treasures looked exceptionally eye-catching. Looks like fruits are growing upon that tree. Qin Feng's brows furrowed slightly. Everyone turned toward the tree. Hidden amongst the thick leaves were indeed multiple glowing spots. As they approached the tree, several people gasped. What kind of fruit was that? They were clearly high-level treasures. If those treasures on the ground were enough to make one shriek in delight, then those upon that tree were enough to make one completely stupefied on the spot. Every single fruit on that tree was a divine-level artifact. Any one of them was enough to shock the entire second domain. With so many divine-level artifacts hidden amongst the tree leaves radiating with a vibrant green glow, it only served to accentuate the allure of those treasures. Even with Yi Qing's warning, the sight of those artifacts had the group swallowing hard to suppress their temptation. Second domain. If they could get their hands on those treasures, they could even take over the third domain. Just as everyone was feeling very moved, Yi Qingtang's attention was attracted by a black fruit on that tree. The fruit was about the size of a fist and pitch black. Hidden amongst the leaves and all the other dazzling divine artifacts, it was very easy to overlook that dim, black fruit. Chapter 2265. Leaving too. But after Yi Qingtang spied that black fruit, she was unable to tear her eyes away from it. The evil fruit. Yi Qingtang never expected that the fruit which she most desired would be growing on this demon tree in the Fiend Celestial's tomb. To take it, or not to take it? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. The seal on the heart of the heavenly Tao was about to fade away. Without the evil fruit to subdue it, the heart of the heavenly Tao would be completely exposed. At her current level, if the heart of the heavenly Tao was exposed, it would attract the attention of many powerful second domain practitioners. By then, she would need to return to how she lived in her former life, forever hiding in fear. By this stage, the night soul beast had already given up. But it suddenly noticed the way Yi Qingtang was looking at something growing on that demon tree. Hope rose in its heart. But that glint of hope in its eyes immediately brought Yi Qingtang to her senses. Yes, she had to get that evil fruit. But now was not the time. Looking at the night soul beast's reaction, Yi Qingtang knew that the things growing on that demon tree were probably the same as the other treasures here. Taking them would invite all sorts of terrifying dangers. Mu Ziying and the rest were with her now. If she made any missteps, she would drag them all down with her. Luckily, she now knew where the evil fruit was. She just had to lead Mu Ziying and the rest out of here first. Then she could find another chance to come back here to take it. Turning away, Yi Qingtang allowed the desire in her eyes to disappear. The night soul beast's eager face immediately fell once more. Were humans so self-disciplined now? Treasures were strewn across the ground and growing on trees. But no one wanted them? This was not like humans at all. Let's go. Yi Qingtang composed herself and instructed Mu Ziying and the rest. If she remembered correctly, the exit of the Fiend Celestial's tomb should be behind this skeleton. Lei Yan and the others kept looking back as they moved forward. If not for Yi Qing's stern warning, they probably would not be able to resist such a massive temptation. They were no fools. They had experienced how dangerous this place was. If not for Yi Qing, they probably would not have made it so far, but died much earlier on. Yi Qing must have her reasons for not letting them touch anything. As they passed by the demon tree and skeleton, they found a dim tunnel hidden right behind. Yi Qingtang led the group into the tunnel, not touching anything at all. Right after Yi Qingtang and the group entered the tunnel, the faint tinkling noise rang out again. But this time, it was going further away from them. Yi Qingtang knew that now she had reached this point, those pursuing factions should no longer be a threat. A treasure-filled place like this was enough to drive all those factions mad. How would they still remember her? After walking quietly for over a dozen meters, the tunnel suddenly widened by 100 times. A dim cave appeared before them. Multiple black monsters were crowded together in the cave. Sleeping. Lei Yin was nearly in tears from fright at the sight of them. Night! Lei Yin was about to cry out, but Yi Qingtang immediately covered his mouth, shushing him. Right in the center of the cave before them were at least 100 slumbering night soul beasts all crowded together. It was the night soul beasts' period of hibernation. The hearts of the teenagers nearly leaped out of their throats. Chapter 2266. Leaving 3. Having witnessed the horror of the night soul beast, how could they endure the sight of so many of them all crowded in one place? To think they had accidentally stumbled into the sleeping chambers of the night soul beasts. Even Qin Feng, who was the bravest amongst them, couldn't help breaking out in cold sweat. If they accidentally woke up these night soul beasts, there was no way they would ever leave this place. Yi Qingtang looked grim. Even she did not dare to wake these night soul beasts. She knew the secret to handle a night soul beast, but against so many, even she was not confident in doing so. At this moment, Yi Qingtang thought of how those factions believed that the period of hibernation was the safest time to explore the tomb. She felt like laughing now. Safe? It was probably the opposite, right? It was true that the evil soul forest was comparatively safe during the period of hibernation. But who could have expected that those night soul beasts would be hibernating inside the Fiend Celestial's tomb? If those factions managed to survive and reach this cave, wouldn't they die from fright at the sight of these night soul beasts? Safe to those exploring the Fiend Celestial's tomb, this was infinitely more dangerous. Yi Qingtang shot Lei Yin and the others a look. The teenagers immediately steadied their hearts. The night soul beast standing beside Yi Qing suddenly took on a strange expression. But before it could make any movement, Yi Qing suddenly lifted it into his arms. The night soul beast. Yi Qing smiled at it. The smile was radiant, and it made all the hairs on the night soul beast stand on end. Helplessly, its body shrunk to the size of a cat. Lei Yin and the rest noticed the entire incident, and their eyes nearly popped out in shock. What the hell? Was their boss really able to handle a night soul beast in this manner? The night soul beast in Yi Qing's arms was as small as a cat. Seeing that, the teenagers calmed down. It looked like their boss really knew how to deal with night soul beasts. So they didn't have much to worry about then. Yi Qing's actions greatly reduced the fear in their hearts against night soul beasts. They believed that their boss could manage all those beasts. What they didn't know was that Yi Qing could only handle one. If all the night soul beasts in this cave woke up, they might as well all just lay down and wait for death. Regardless, this misunderstanding managed to calm their hearts down. Yi Qingtang didn't have time to explain, but just had them follow close behind her, making their way through the gaps between those night soul beasts. The group carefully followed behind Yi Qing, trying to make their footsteps as light as possible. Growl! Just as Mu Ziying passed by a sleeping night soul beast, that beast suddenly gave a low growl and shifted its body. Mu Ziying's face turned pale. Luckily Jing Zhe was fast, and managed to draw Mu Ziying into his arms, just before the night soul beast made contact with her. Yi Qingtang heaved a hidden sigh of relief, but she suddenly spotted something out of the corner of her eye. There seemed to be a special pattern drawing on the original spot, where the night soul beast was sleeping. Yi Qingtang seemed to have seen that pattern drawing someplace before. But at that moment, she couldn't really recall it completely. Having been forced to walk past over 100 slumbering night soil beasts, the teenagers were all extremely anxious. Even though they had the wrong idea that Yi Qing could handle all those beasts, just the sight of the numbers was terrifying enough. Chapter 2267. Leaving 4. After walking for an unknown period of time, the group finally emerged from the herd of hibernating night soul beasts. It was not that far a distance, but everyone was drenched in cold sweat. Seeing that Yi Qingtang and her group had safely emerged, the night soul beast in her arms rolled its eyes in hopelessness. Yi Qingtang scanned the way before them. It was pitch black, like a tunnel with no end. But Yi Qingtang knew that as long as they continued this way, they would be able to leave the Fiend Celestial's tomb. Go on. Yi Qingtang nodded at the teenagers, indicating that they should move first. Lei Yan and the others thought that there was still a long way to go, and so despondently trudged forward. But the moment Lei Yan entered the darkness, the pitch-black scene before him was suddenly replaced by bright light. Dazed by the piercing light, Lei Yan instinctively shut his eyes, and when he opened them again, he realized he was standing outside the entrance of the Fiend Celestial's tomb. The entrance of the Fiend Celestial's tomb was erected right before his eyes, in the middle of the mountain. Lei Yan was bewildered. How did he suddenly arrive here? Before Lei Yan could snap out of his trance, Mu Ziying and Jing Zhe appeared beside him. The two of them reacted the same way as Lei Yan. They were similarly stunned. Close behind Nangong Lai, Qin Feng, Yin Chun and the rest all appeared. Yi Qing, with the night soul beast in his arms, was the last to emerge. Boss, how did we come out? Nangong Lai was puzzled. He looked around. Apart from the large stone door, which was the entrance to the Fiend Celestial's tomb, they could not see any other doorway. How did they come out? Just like that. Yi Qing would not be able to explain everything about the Fiend Celestial's tomb right now. They had been lucky. After diving into the boundless river, they managed to find the nearest exit. If they had entered another tunnel inside that boundless river, who knew where they might have ended up? Yi Qingtang had also noticed earlier that there were nearly 1,000 different tunnel entrances at the Fiend Celestial's treasure trove. Each represented a road, and no one knew what they would encounter in each. And amongst the 1,000 tunnel entrances, only the one hidden behind the skeleton would lead to the exit from the Fiend Celestial's tomb. If Yi Qingtang hadn't been reborn and knew key information about the Fiend Celestial's tomb, they would probably have died inside. Now is not the time to talk about all these. We must return to the camp immediately. Yi Qing surveyed the teenagers with a cold eye. Lei Yan and the rest knew that Yi Qing was just waiting till they returned to camp to give them a good scolding. Boss, let us explain. We had no choice, little senior sister. We will talk after we go back. Yi Qing stated coldly. Since the Temple of Paragon had issued the reward notice, the factions they encountered earlier would not be the only ones in the second domain to be interested. Those factions would be on their way to the Evil Soul Forest now. Yi Qingtang did not wish to encounter those other factions outside the Fiend Celestial's tomb. Lei Yan and the rest instinctively shrank back. Knowing that they were in the wrong, they had no choice but to obediently follow Yi Qing back to camp. On the way back, Yi Qingtang noticed from afar several teams of horsemen flashing past the undergrowth. They looked like men from the other factions, who were rushing to the Fiend Celestial's tomb. After the entrance to the Fiend Celestial's tomb had been opened, it would not close for the time being. Chapter 2268. Hidden Danger, 1. Soon after Yi Qingtang and the others returned to the Night Soul Beast's cave, those teenagers, who were exhausted from their ordeal at the Fiend Celestial's tomb, all fell asleep before she could reprimand them. Mu Ziying had also suffered quite a bit, and was clearly very tired, but she forcibly kept her eyes open, not daring to fall asleep. Seeing this, Yi Qingtang had no choice but to hold her on her knees and coax her to sleep. She let out a quiet sigh as she watched those sleeping brats. At first, she only wanted to make use of the Netherworld Academy's wind-calming pearl to leave this mainland. But now, after spending time with these brats, she had somehow developed feelings for them. Hearing them call her boss and pestering her all day long, Yi Qingtang was exasperated by their antics. But her heart also felt a bit warmer. I wonder how Little White Tiger and the others in Central Mainland are. Yi Qingtang gazed at the grayish forest outside the entrance of the cave. Since coming to the second domain, She had lost contact with everyone in the first domain. The voice transmission stone which Ling Yan had given her was unable to connect across the two domains. She had tried to use the voice transmission stone to contact Ling Yan, but the stone remained unresponsive. While in Central Mainland, she had been taken away by the Temple of Paragon people. The only good thing was that the situation with the ancient Yu clan had already been resolved. Everyone should be safe. I wonder if little white tiger misses me. Yi Qingtang glanced at the night soul beast, who was sleeping with its 4 limbs all sprawled out. She couldn't help being reminded of that excitable little white tiger. If she managed to leave this mainland, Yi Qingtang had considered whether to return to the first domain, or remain in the second domain, to search for the mystery behind the heart of the heavenly Tao. After pondering for some time, Yi Qingtang decided on the second option. The heart of the heavenly Tao in her body was a great danger. Even the powers of the divine phoenix, or the evil fruit, would only be able to temporarily suppress the heart of the heavenly Tao. They were not complete solutions. The only way was to gain a full understanding of this hidden danger, and then try to remove it from her body. Only then could she have true peace. Otherwise, she would never be able to escape her ill fate. After all, the heart of the heavenly Tao did not belong to her. But ever since she could remember, it had existed inside her body. She had tried to ask her foster father Yi Ling if there was anything strange about her when he first found her, but Yi Ling hadn't noticed anything amiss. This meant that the heart of the heavenly Tao was already inside her body when Yi Ling found her. But when did the heart of the heavenly Tao become part of her? Probably only her biological mother, Diju Yuan, could answer this question. Yi Qingtang recalled her time in the mystic realm, when she met those people from the Dragon Emperor clan. Now they were her only source of information as to what happened to her mother. Only by going to the Dragon Emperor clan would she be able to find out everything about her mother. If she remembered correctly, the mainland where the Inter-Academy competition would be held was the same as the one where the Dragon Emperor clan was located. If she could help Qin Feng and the others enter the Inter-Academy competition, she could go with them to that mainland to uncover the secret behind the heart of the heavenly Tao. At this thought, Yi Qingtang confirmed her next plan of action. Chapter 2269. Hidden Danger 2. Eyes scanning the dark, dim evil soul forest, Yi Qingtang felt somewhat tired. She leaned against the cold wall and shut her eyes. During this period of time, the various factions would continuously surge toward the Fiend Celestial's tomb because of the Temple of Paragon's reward notice. Yi Qingtang did not plan to get entangled with those factions under such circumstances, so she decided to lay low for a few days and observe the situation first, before entering the Fiend Celestial's tomb again. Just as Yi Qingtang was entering Dreamland, a streak of light secretly flew in from outside the Evil Soul Forest. The light passed through the entire Evil Soul Forest, flying straight toward the Fiend Celestial's tomb. As the door to the Fiend Celestial's tomb was opened, the various factions had surged inside the moment they discovered the entrance. 2 figures hidden in the darkness floated in midair, as they peered down at those factions rushing into the Fiend Celestial's tomb. "My lord, it is as you predicted. The various factions have all entered the Fiend Celestial's tomb." A stooped-over old man cupped his fists respectfully at the black-clad elder. The elder floated in midair with his hands crossed behind his back. Dressed in black and wearing a black mask, all that was revealed were his 2 eyes, which shimmered subtly. He stared coldly at the living beings surging into the Fiend Celestial's tomb. There was no warmth at all in those eyes at all. "But I didn't expect them to find a way into the tomb so quickly," the elder said. The old man also looked puzzled. "I also didn't expect this. My lord, when you disclosed information about the Fiend Celestial's eye to the Temple of Paragon, and then had the temple announce the news, I also made the arrangements to have our men merge in with the various factions, so that they could guide them toward the method to open the door. But our men arrived only to see that the door was already opened." The elder was also puzzled. According to their plans, the Fiend Celestial's tomb should only be opened at a certain point. But now, The Fiend Celestial's tomb was opened earlier than they expected. Don't tell me the Temple of Paragon also sent their own men here? The old man guessed. The elder shook his head slightly. Even the Temple of Paragon doesn't know how to open the entrance to the tomb. Yes, my lord. The elder narrowed his eyes as his gaze landed on the Fiend Celestial's tomb in the middle of the mountain. Up in mid-air, he could see the entire mountain. Under the faint moonlight, wisps of aura seemed to drift up endlessly from that deathly still mountain. My lord, regardless of when this door was opened, the results would be the same. None of the various factions who entered the tomb would make it out alive, the old man said in a low voice. Everyone in the second domain wishes to find the treasure in the tomb. But none of them knows that this tomb is a place where one will never return from, the elder said. If the Temple of Paragon did not suddenly express an interest in that thing, I wouldn't have gotten the chance to bring forward this plan. Yes, but we just don't know why the Temple of Paragon is suddenly interested in the Fiend Celestial's eye. I tried to probe, but couldn't find any information. Don't go sticking your nose into the Temple of Paragon's affairs. Now is not the time to get into conflict with them. Yes, my lord. The elder didn't speak again. He looked at the rising aura drifting up from the mountain. Narrowing his eyes, a black pearl suddenly shot out from his hand and flew toward the mountain, disappearing inside. Chapter 2270. Hidden Danger 3. The moment the pearl disappeared, the flowing auras were suddenly sealed off. Everything looked normal once again. Understanding dawned upon the old man when he saw the elder's actions. My lord, the array formation in the Fiend Celestial's tomb has already been activated. After the men from the various factions have been sacrificed inside, their souls will enter that array formation. Your plan is indeed flawless. The elder surveyed the area, scanning the pitch-black forest. People only knew that the Fiend Celestial's tomb was filled with the Fiend Celestial's treasures. What they did not know was that those treasures were just a lure to their death. The dangers within the Fiend Celestial's tomb were far greater than what everyone could imagine. 10 out of 10 people would die. It was a guaranteed consequence of those who entered. Let's go. Before the array formation has absorbed enough souls, no one would be able to leave this place alive, the elder said before he disappeared with a flash. The old man glanced at the mountain one last time, his eyes glowing with an evil glint. That's right. Anyone who stepped into the tomb before the sacrifice was complete would only end up being a sacrifice himself. The two of them disappeared, not knowing that their expected 10 out of 10 prediction had already changed. Yi Qingtang and her group had walked out of the tomb well and alive. After resting for a night, they recovered from their fatigue. This time, Yi Qingtang did not dare to let those brats fool around again. After observing for a few days, she marked out a few locations from where the various factions were entering, before carving out a safe zone. She had Lei Yan and the others continue their training there. On her own, she continued to observe the movements of the various factions. The number of factions who entered the Evil Soul Forest continued to increase over the next few days. And the number of powerful practitioners at present became increasingly terrifying. Some of the major factions even dispatched their most elite practitioners into the tomb. But Yi Qingtang observed that none of those who entered the Fiend Celestial's tomb managed to emerge. Even the demon child and his company, Yi Qingtang saw no traces of them. The expansive Fiend Celestial's tomb was like a deep abyss hidden in the darkness, swallowing everyone who dared to enter. Yi Qingtang remembered that in her previous life, before information about the Fiend Celestial's tomb was completely exposed, the various factions had spent dozens of years exploring it and losing many men in the process, before finally fully understanding the place. But it was rather strange. The period of hibernation for the Night Soul Beasts should have ended several days ago. All the Night Soul Beasts should have been out roaming in the Evil Soul Forest now. But Yi Qingtang realized that after the Fiend Celestial's tomb was opened, apart from the one by her side, she did not see any other Night Soul Beast. Could it be? Had the Night Soul Beast's period of hibernation had lengthened? Or did someone from the factions disturb the Night Soul Beast's slumber? and the beasts decided to remain in the tomb after realizing there were intruders. Yi Qingtang had no idea, but she did not have much more time. The divine phoenix seal would completely disappear in another 2 days' time. If she couldn't get the evil fruit within these 2 days, the heart of the heavenly Tao would regain its freedom. By then Yi Qingtang's secret would be exposed. There was no choice. Yi Qingtang had to enter the Fiend Celestial's tomb as soon as possible. Before going in, she specifically gathered Lei Yan and the others, instructing them to be very careful. She was going to be away for a few days. Chapter 2271. Exploring the tomb again. 1. After returning to the cave and resting for a night, Lei Yan and the others were duly reprimanded by Yi Qing. Now the teenagers were as obedient as dogs. Yi Qing's word was the law. After settling them in and giving them her instructions, Yi Qingtang made some preparations before leading the night soul beast toward the Fiend Celestial's tomb once more. She specially found an empty spot of time when none of the factions were outside the tomb, and quickly entered it. With her prior experience and her memories from her previous life, Yi Qingtang's second venture into the tomb went very smoothly. But there was a difference from her first time. The entire tomb was now filled with the thick stench of blood. On the matrix path, Yi Qingtang glanced at the densely packed evil demon statues and saw a mess of blood and flesh. Countless bodies were piled beneath the feet of those statues. Fresh blood had dyed the entire ground a deep red. An endless sea of pulverized flesh and internal organs were piled together. Crushed by the statues, those bodies were completely deformed. They looked like mounds of fleshy pulp stacked around the statues. In her first experience entering the tomb, the place had been filled with a strange aura. But now, this place was like hell on earth. Walking past the matrix path and stepping into the palace with the illusory doors, the formerly pristine grounds were also strewn with countless bodies. All the doors looked like they had been opened. Bloodstains streaked the edges of the doorways. There were different sorts of illusory doors. Yi Qingtang had just wanted to divert the attention of the various factions, and so had chosen the safest one for them. Inside that particular door, one would only experience certain illusions. It was not that lethal, but the other doors were fatal. Amongst so many doors, there was only one which would lead to the true path forward. A single misstep could bring endless calamity. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath. Only 2 weeks had passed, and the inside of the Fiend Celestial's tomb was already covered in corpses. The number of people who had died was already beyond estimation. An increasing number of major factions, and an increasing number of powerful practitioners had come in. But in the end, none of them managed to make it out alive. Passing through the illusory door, Yi Qingtang arrived at the boundless river. She had made a special mark at the place where she dived into the river. The entire route was imprinted in her memory, and she followed that route as she swam inside the river. Those undead mermaids swam in the waters. Yi Qingtang personally saw them dragging those who had already drowned into the depths. Even the waters were filled with the thick taste of blood. Bits of flesh which had been torn off floated in the water, making the river even murkier. After leaving the boundless river, Yi Qingtang finally arrived at a familiar tunnel. She pushed herself onwards until she soon found the dazzling scene. But before Yi Qingtang arrived at the Fiend Celestial's treasure trove, piteous cries echoed from somewhere up front. Loud wails and softer whimperings echoed into the tunnel. Those cries plus the smell of blood made one feel as if they had accidentally stepped onto the stairway to hell. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly as she quickened her steps. When she arrived at the entrance of the treasure trove, she saw that it had turned into hell on earth. Chapter 2272. Exploring the tomb again 2. Inside the dazzling treasure trove, garish streaks of blood splattered all across the jewels and artifacts. Multiple corpses were strewn across those treasures which could drive a person mad. Those highly desired treasures had now become a burial ground for the various factions. The bodies piled up on the treasures had died wretchedly, none of them whole. Vast amounts of fresh blood dyed those bodies a bloody red. The vibrant red color looked exceptionally eye-catching against the dazzling treasures. "Help! Help!" Cries and wails echoed through the treasure trove. A group of bloodied people was scurrying madly in all directions. Their faces were filled with shock. Gone were the initial signs of delight at discovering this treasure trove. Yi Qingtang looked over with a grim expression. While she could see those people running wildly, she did not see anything pursuing them. No. Yi Qingtang suddenly realized that there seemed to be something hidden in the treasure piles behind those men. It was protruding slightly and speeding toward those men. Something hidden within the treasure piles was quietly chasing after those greedy intruders. Tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. The clear sound of countless treasures clinking against each other rang out. A massive black figure suddenly burst out from underneath the treasure pile. Before those men could react, that black figure had pounced upon the first few. It then burrowed back into the treasure pile and sped toward the others. Dismembered remains were all that was left of those who had been attacked. The bodies of those men were cut off at the waist. The top halves were missing and fresh blood gushed out from the opening at the waist. Hot blood sprayed all over like raindrops. What was that thing? Yi Qingtang was shocked. When she had first stepped into the Fiend Celestial's treasure trove, she already detected something horrifying was hidden underneath the treasure piles. But the speed of that thing had been too fast. Even Yi Qingtang could not see what it was. All she saw was a black shadow flashing by and killing those men. Yi Qingtang noticed that those who had lost the upper halves of their bodies soon collapsed to the ground, and bloodied treasures rolling out from their pockets. Treasures inside the Fiend Celestial's tomb should not be touched. Indeed, greed would attract the hidden monster. Boom! A loud crash sounded out from somewhere nearby. Yi Qingtang saw an imperious-looking elder frowning, and with his hands lifted. He held no sword, but his spirit energy had morphed into the shape of one as he slashed at the approaching monster. Emperor-level practitioner? Yi Qingtang was startled. The elder had an extremely powerful aura, and it was apparent that he was not an ordinary cultivator. This was a true blue Emperor-level practitioner. Even in the second domain, an Emperor-level practitioner was an elite existence. This elder was extraordinarily powerful. One of the factions must have sent him here to explore the Fiend Celestial's tomb. But at that moment, the elder was not at all relaxed. He even looked somewhat wretched. The monster beneath appeared completely unharmed even after he slashed at it. Its speed didn't decrease as it barreled out of the treasure pile. Heavenly Tyrant Constitution! The elder gave a low shout. A golden beam of light engulfed him, and all the treasures near him were blown away. His body seemed to be stained by the golden light, such that his skin was now giving off a dazzling golden sheen. Chapter 2273. Exploring the Tomb Again 3. That black shadow pounced forward. It completely engulfed the golden light radiating from the elder. In the blink of an eye, the Heavenly Tyrant Constitution's powerful aura completely vanished. The black shadow once again burrowed into the treasure pile, leaving behind a pool of fresh blood on the surface. Yi Qingtang watched as that Emperor-level practitioner launched an Emperor-level defense, only to be completely hapless before the black figure's attack. At this moment, she realized that the power of that black shadow was already far beyond that of an Emperor-level practitioner. There were still many people inside the treasure trove who were trying to escape. They looked just like lambs being prepped for slaughter. Yi Qingtang quietly took a deep breath. She was very sure that she was no match for that black shadow. After all, even that Emperor-level practitioner was not able to leave this treasure trove in one piece. How could she stand a chance? But she had to get that evil fruit. Yi Qingtang scanned the treasure trove. With her previous experience, she already knew that as long as she didn't touch anything here, that black figure would not attack her. The evil fruit was growing on that demon tree, and that tree was very near the exit. And the black figure was presently occupied with the other men running around the treasure trove. Perhaps she could take this opportunity to go near the demon tree, quickly pick that evil fruit, and sprint toward the exit. Yi Qingtang's mind raced. The men from the various factions had probably taken the items here, incurring the wrath of the black figure protecting this place. The Black Shadow would never let a single person off. This might be a good chance for her. Steadying her heart, Yi Qingtang swallowed several bottles of elixirs before sneaking across the blood-drenched treasure trove. Piteous cries from the various factions echoed endlessly around. They were paying the price for their greed. Heaven knew how thrilled and eager they had been when they saw this treasure trove, filled with jewels and artifacts all ripe for the taking. But this place had ended up being their burial ground. Yi Qingtang circled around those fleeing men, heading straight for the demon tree. As she expected, as long as she didn't touch anything, the Black Shadow paid no attention to her. Soon enough, she reached the demon tree. Looking up, she quickly located the evil fruit. But she was in no big hurry to grab it. She surveyed the treasure trove and paid close attention to where the black figure was. Only when the Black Shadow had pursued a group of men to a spot furthest away from her location did Yi Qingtang's eyes flicker. It was now or never. Yi Qingtang flew up onto the tree and picked the evil fruit as fast as she could. But the moment her hand touched the evil fruit, a loud roar sounded out. The entire treasure trove shook intensely. The black figure which was hidden beneath the treasures erupted in rage, rocking the entire sea of treasures, turning them all upside down. At this moment, everyone finally saw the true form of that black figure. It was a massive black snake. When its body was finally revealed, everyone could see that it was extremely mammoth in size, spanning the entire treasure trove. And those treasures were just piled upon the body of that snake. Chapter 2274. Black Snake 1. The enraged black snake, which had been toying around with those intruders before killing them, had now lost all patience. The moment its massive body emerged, all living beings inside the treasure trove were immediately crushed into meat pulp. No one even had the chance to struggle. There was no hope for survival at all. The moment they stepped into the treasure trove and took a treasure, they had been condemned to death. After all, they were already standing on the body of that monster. As the black snake pulverized everyone, its blood-red eyes were fixated upon Yi Qingtang at the demon tree. Shit. This was bad. Yi Qingtang's heart leaped. It was too late to let go now. Stuffing the evil fruit into her space ring, she pelted towards the tunnel at the back. Roar! The black snake erupted like a wild beast. Cold sweat drenched Yi Qingtang's back. She had initially found it very strange. Those fleeing men could split up in different directions, so that at least some would have the chance to escape, while the Black Shadow was busy with the others. But now, after witnessing the body of that black snake, Yi Qingtang finally understood the reason. Everyone had underestimated the size of that black snake. It was everywhere. Yi Qingtang felt like throwing up blood. If she had known that snake was so big, she wouldn't have taken such a huge risk. The various factions had touched the treasures in this treasure trove, which triggered the murderous pursuit by that black snake. But the black snake had revealed its entire body only after Yi Qingtang picked that evil fruit. It was clear that the treasures growing on that demon tree were far more valuable than any of the other things in that treasure trove. Yi Qingtang was already fleeing as fast as she could, but that black snake moved at an astounding speed. In the blink of an eye, it was already right behind Yi Qingtang. Heart leaping out of her throat, Yi Qingtang instinctively thought of using the Night Soul Beast to block. But the Night Soul Beast by her side also looked extremely terrified, as if it was also very frightened of that black snake. What was going on? Weren't the Night Soul Beast and that black snake both guardians of the Fiend Celestial's tomb? Why would the Night Soul Beast also be attacked by the black snake? Yi Qingtang could not confirm, but had no time to dally. Gritting her teeth, she dashed with all her might toward the tunnel. There was no time to bother about anything else. She could only try her best to flee. Going by her memory, Yi Qingtang charged straight into the hibernation area of the Night Soul Beasts. Previously, those Night Soul Beasts had been in hibernation, but perhaps they were now awake and hanging around the cave. Dashing into the cave, Yi Qingtang saw the densely packed crowd of Night Soul Beasts. They looked like they were still sleeping, sprawled together in one tightly packed herd. Whether she would live or die, It would be determined by this gamble. Yi Qingtang could already feel the breath of the black snake on her back. Slamming her eyes shut, she pounced toward the herd of slumbering night soul beasts. The night soul beast with Yi Qingtang had wanted to make use of the black snake to get rid of this human. But its face completely fell when it saw Yi Qingtang luring that snake into the night soul beast's lair. What was this human trying to do? The night soul beast was about to go insane. Although the night soul beasts and black snake were both guardians of the tomb, they were from entirely different races and stood guard over different areas. Chapter 2275, Black Snake, 2. It could be said that those two never really got the chance to meet. This was the first time the night soul beast saw the real form of the black snake. Once the black snake attacked, it would be a senseless killing machine. It only knew to keep attacking, so it was natural the night soul beasts would never go provoking this kind of dangerous being. But now, the night soul beast was despondent. Yi Qingtang dived straight into the herd of night soul beasts, closely followed by that black snake, who pounced with its jaws wide open. As she was petite, she managed to squeeze into a gap right between a few night soul beasts. But that black snake was massive, and one snap of its jaws slashed the bodies of those night soul beasts into halves. Night soul beasts were not made of flesh and blood. They consumed souls for food, and their bodies were only part matter. Attacked in the middle of their hibernation, those night soul beasts immediately woke up. When they came to their senses, they realized that it was the black snake, the guardian of the next-door treasure trove, that was attacking them. Roar! Those night soul beasts who were injured gave warning roars. The night soul beasts and black snake were two different races, and they had always stayed out of each other's way. Who would have thought that the black snake would suddenly attack them? Those night soul beasts were very big, and after being enraged by the attack, they were completely oblivious to the guilty party hidden amongst them. The black snake was still focused on Yi Qingtang. It would only pursue those who took a treasure. It had no interest in those night soul beasts at all. The black snake opened its jaws again and attacked the spot where Yi Qingtang was hidden. Those night soul beasts saw that the black snake was attacking once more and immediately roared again. Their roars were like thunder, echoing throughout the entire cave. The other slumbering night soul beasts were awakened by those roars. In the blink of an eye, countless night soul beasts were awakened. The night soul beasts had no idea what was happening. They just knew that right after waking up, they saw the black snake attacking their own kind. The night soul beasts all roared in unison. One-on-one, they were no match for the black snake, but they had an advantage in numbers now. They would never actively provoke the black snake, but now that it was madly attacking them, they would not just lay down and wait for death. In the blink of an eye, countless night soul beasts pounced toward the mad black snake. Soon enough, the colossal body of the black snake was engulfed by countless night soul beasts. The black snake was powerful, but those night soul beasts were no weaklings either. And they had numbers on their side. In addition, the night soul beasts' bodies were only half solid, and they could not be completely eradicated. For a moment there, the black snake was trapped by all those beasts, unable to shake them off. Yi Qingtang saw that her plan had worked. Not daring to delay a second longer, she grabbed her night soul beast and fled out of the cave. She did not dare to leave her night soul beast, who knew what had really happened, behind in the cave. If it ratted her out to its friends, wouldn't both the black snake and night soul beasts chase her to the ends of the earth? Yi Qingtang understood now. The black snake and night soul beasts were both guardians of the tomb, but the two of them did not interact at all. It was because of this that such a fortuitous misunderstanding had arisen. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.